everybody. Welcome to members of the public, and welcome if we have any members of the press. I'm not sure if anyone's here. Attendance. I haven't heard from Councillor Ross. Councillor Brooks. So here's an apology?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have one apology.
Yeah.
Items, business.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay, acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge and pay our respects to the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as the traditional and original owners and continuing custodians of this land on which we gather today, and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. Now, do we have any declarations of interest from councillors? Councillor Terrett?
Item 13.2, detail local flood mapping. I own a property in the flood study area. And also in closed council 3.5.1, dispute resolution, Councillor Terrett against the General Manager.
Anybody else? I have a closed council item 5.1A2. Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting. Oh, Councillor Adams, sorry. Minutes, okay, from the ordinary meeting of Monday the 19th of May. Councillor Adams, and seconder for those minutes, Councillor McCullough. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The date of the next council meeting will be Monday the 21st of July. Motions by a councillor. We have one motion regarding a driver reviver station location at Campbelltown, and the officer's recommendation is that council support the SES to find an appropriate location other than Valentine's Park to set up the driver reviver station in Campbelltown. Councillor Lambert, do you wish to move the
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll move the motion.
Councillor Lambert and Councillor Terrett. Do you wish to speak to it?
Just briefly, yes. I've brought this to council tonight on behalf of a business owner in Campbelltown who is quite concerned about opening their business during those weekends, holiday periods and things like that, and the potential, well, for lack of a better word, competition between what the driver reviver, apologies, has unintended consequences and has actually done. So basically, the driver reviver program had launched a new sort of version of what they were doing, and the concept was basically to go to where the people were, rather than set up in their traditional, more remote locations. So they were wanting to set up in high traffic areas, so where there seems to be a lot of people. So they did a pilot project in Valentine's Park in Campbelltown in 2024 at Easter. And, you know, that was fine. However, there were many businesses who take that opportunity to open up over those times, and that's an economic decision for them to make, whether it's viable for them to open at that time. So I think that this particular business owner was concerned about the unintended consequences of opening where there's lots of people. So people will make an economic decision. Do they go and pay for their coffee, or do they go and have a free one? So I think the Driver Reviver program is brilliant. It is a fantastic project, and it is, you know, really, really valued in our community. So I'm not disparaging that in any way whatsoever. It is absolutely valued, but I think we just need to look at making a better decision about where that's housed, and absolutely invite it into our community, into the Northern Midlands. I think we absolutely need to have it here, but in order to support and protect our businesses as well, perhaps we can find a more suitable location. And I see that the officer's recommendation is to do that. I believe the rec ground is one option. Kanara is another option that could be considered. and I'm sure there are many others as well. But I think we just need to look at a little bit of a balance there where we can have the driver reviver stations supporting people taking a break and looking at good driving habits versus our businesses being able to still make some money on those long weekends and those kinds of times. So that's what it's
Councillor, as seconded, you wish to speak?
Yes, I echo Councillor Lambert's comments. I raised this with the General Manager back in May of 2024 as a one-off event. The impact that this Reviver Survivor has, whilst it's good for motorists, it can almost kill off businesses during that period. And I had complaints from a number of businesses that this was about the effect that this had on a long weekend, and this would be a one-off of 60 years of road safety events, and was given some assurance that wouldn't happen again. I was also concerned about the parking within the main street of Campbelltown, and particularly with caravans and other large vehicles parking in that street on top of already existing weekend traffic. A different alternative location is certainly required, and the two suggestions that Councillor Lambert made may be a way of addressing that. But we have to be mindful of our businesses and keeping them in their peak area times. Long weekends are very peak time for coffee shops, particularly in Campbelltown, and we should do something if this is going to be an ongoing situation.
Any further discussion? Councillor Adams.
I can only comment by, St Peter's Pass is normally what I remember over the years as being one of the areas which is, a long way from town. So I don't know, Canara being suggested, that would be another spot, I guess, in the north.
Okay, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Councillor, questions on notice. There are 5 questions there and the answers have been provided in the agenda. So we'll move on now to council committees. Confirmation of minutes. The recommendation of the following minutes of the meetings of council committees be received. Councillor Adams and Councillor Lambert. All those in favour? Can everybody please put their phones on silent? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, recommendations from the committees. The Ross Local District Committee has a recommendation around the Ross Township entry signs, a dual naming sign for Markala. And the officer's recommendation is that council approve the committee request to investigate the Aboriginal name of Ross, and B, investigate updating the entry sign to Ross to include the Aboriginal name. Councillor Andrews, you wish to move that. Councillor Adams is seconding. Councillor Andrews, do you wish to speak to it?
Just to encourage the people in the Ross district that they've come up with this idea, and it's timely, and they should be encouraged to further investigate it, and that's what the office is recommending that we do, and open up the discussion about and dual naming Ross. We went down this track with the river some time ago, and that was a really good thing to come out of the community, so I think this should be encouraged.
Councillor Adams?
Councillor Andrews, that's right. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Information items. The recommendation is that the council information items be received. Councillor McCollum and Councillor Terrett. Any questions about the information items? Councillor Terrett.
8.13 vandalism, and the increase in road vandalism throughout the Northern Midlands is being something that is costing our community a lot of money. The examples of just the amount here, which is quite substantial, plus on top of that, Seacombe Park, damage done by people hooning on recreational grounds. I could go on for quite a while, but I think this is something that we really do have to work closely with the police and encourage people in the community to report even a minor vandalism, because often a minor thing that is occurs sometimes creates a lot of damage. And I had just in the last week 2 young boys who were damaging some pipes and damaging a council needs to pay for, and that comes out of your pocket. And I think we need to do something more in relation to that, into vandalism that is increasing throughout the Northern Midlands.
Councillor Andrews.
Just two things. The first, I'd just like to welcome the youth officer, our new youth officer, and note that he seems to be well underway in doing an amazing job. His report on page 33 shows that there's all sorts of new things going on which are absolutely fabulous around our schools. We've got a chess club going at Evendale Primary School, and we've got more breakfasts and lunches happening at Campbelltown. So it's fabulous to see him on the ground and running. The other thing was, if we go back to our straight information items, I'm concerned that we seem to have a backlog of things waiting for a response from state growth again. Is there any, do we check in on a regular basis with state growth? Can we have a round table meeting with them saying, can you give us a decision on these 6 things that we've been waiting for a decision from you for quite some time?
Yes,
months?
ma'am, we have regular contact, and we can follow up again and perhaps ask for a meeting with their general manager.
Would it be a suggestion to have a list of things so you can remind, you probably do it anyway,
We do
General
that,
Manager,
ma'am.
but say these are still outstanding?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else got questions about information items? Okay, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, it's not too early to start public question time, is it?
Of course, ma'am, because we advertise it.
Right, so we've got to go on to the next bit. After planning, we have Development Services Report, the monthly report, page 154. The report is on page 154, and the recommendation is that the report be noted. Have you all found it? Councillor McCullough, you're moving that. And Councillor Voss is seconding. Councillor McCullough, do you wish to questions discussed? Councillor Voss?
Thank you.
No discussion from anybody. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 13.2. Okay, yes. Is the detailed local flood study program for Longford. The recommendation is that the report be noted. I'm hoping everybody's read it. Councillor Adams,
Yes.
moving.
I'll move.
Councillor Andrews is seconding. Councillor Adams, do you have any
Well,
comments?
there's been some confusion about, in policy terms, when had the SES1 report, so this is taking us down the right direction.
Councillor Andrews,
Agreed.
any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Councillor Terraphack. Okay, 13.3 is a policy update, exempt temporary buildings or works, including shipping containers policy. The recommendation is that council endorse the amendments to the exempt temporary buildings or works, including shipping containers policy. A mover and a seconder, we can discuss it. Councillor Goss. And seconder. Councillor Andrews. Councillor Goss, do you wish to make comment?
Yeah, the only place I want to comment on was that incident over a year or so ago where the building company had the containers on the street, on the footpath for many months. And I thought that was a bit imposing on the community that lived next door to them or used the area, because you had to go on the road to get around the container. But I did notice in the document that they are mentioned, and that's only under the general manager's discretion they can do that. So I think that's really important, because I don't think they should be able to put them out on the street, on the footpath.
Councillor Andrews, did you wish to make comment?
Just a note that the seems to be that the main thrust of this amendment is so that there's a time frame on how long you can have shipping containers, etc., on site, which is a positive thing.
Councillor Terry.
Yeah, this is actually, I'm pleased Councillor Andrews raised that, because sometimes it does take a while to get rid of a container. The amendments do change it from the 3 months to immediate, which I think may have some just administrative concern trying to get rid of somebody to come and pick the thing up if there are delays, and it's not just a matter of saying, oh, it's got to go tomorrow. And I do believe that we do need to have some wriggle room in this. I was concerned that the immediacy of these changes, and that we need to be aware of that some of the difficulties of removing this, and to take that into consideration should these new timeframes be put in.
Is that an issue, General Manager?
Thanks to the
Thanks, yeah, so yeah, where it's removed the 3 months, it talks about council commencing enforcement action. We do, when we're taking that action, stipulate a time or an alternative time agreed to, so if they're having trouble getting it removed by a certain time frame, there's the allowance for additional time.
Any further discussion? I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 14.1 is the community directory, and the officer's recommendation is that A, council supports the Northern Business Association in the hosting and continuing compilation of the community directory for the region, or we do not continue the support. And I have a mover and a seconder for one of those recommendations.
I move that we do not.
I'll second that. Councillor Colour is seconding. Councillor Terry, do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I'm speaking to that. I was concerned mainly about the information being collected and who actually owns that information if it's collected by a business association. And whilst may assist the council having this directory collected, I have had members who are members of different groups concerned why the business association is collecting that, and who has that and how does it kept up to date. What can be done with that information? Could it be sold? Who actually has the coverage on that? And when Councillor Adams moved the motion for a directory, and I quite happily seconded, I believe that the council has the resources to do that with an IT and connecting it to that and keeping, if we get a community development officer to actually use that and integrate that. I'm not sure what the NMBA will do with that other than as a collection. I believe the council should be collecting that on behalf of the community.
Councillor McCullough, do you wish to speak?
I think that we'll end up paying for the council ourselves. I think we should be utilising ourselves. I think today we have a society that has Google reviews, Google Maps, everything online. So I'm not sure why we would want to be paying for that when we can actually have all that information accessible online, free and available 24 hours a day.
Councillor Andrews.
I won't be voting for this motion because I know that council hasn't got the resources or the money to get somebody to do this work in council, and the NBA is an extension of council. They're doing it on our behalf. So we either have it or we don't, because council can't do it itself. We don't have the resources or the finance to do it ourselves at the moment.
Any further discussion? Councillor
I'm
Andrews.
just wondering whether we could get a couple of those questions answered that Councillor Terrett had put forward about who owns
Who owns the information that can be sold?
etc. If that's possible tonight, I'm not sure.
Well, we've been gathering the information, and we can ensure and put in place a mechanism to ensure that it can't be on-sold. We can do that to ensure that our protection's made. As indicated by Councillor Andrews, we do not have the resources to set this up or manage it. Decision really comes back to council. If there's any other questions I can answer, I'm happy to answer those.
Can I just say, look, I remember back in the day, there used to be a directory that, and I'm not sure whether it was councils or the NNBA or a combination of both, but it was really valuable, and it was targeted for our community. If you needed a plumber or you needed someone to do some tiling or whatever it was all there. And if you're like me and you prefer to try and support your local businesses and get them to do things that you need doing, that was a great one-stop shop for us to be able to find someone locally, to be able to get them to, and that money flowed in our community. So I used it a lot and it disappeared. So I'm really excited about the idea that we can have our own community directory up and operational. We provide a cash injection to the NMBA for them to do work on our behalf. And I think this is a logical thing that they could be doing and should be doing on our behalf, provided those checks and balances that the General Managers just mentioned are put in place. And provided that they are able to keep it updated and build that relationship with those people who want to be on the registry. And I think over time that I would imagine, why wouldn't you want to be on it if you want to be able to work within your own local community? So I will be supporting it.
Any further discussion? Councillor Adams.
Oh, yes, I've got a couple of questions, Mayor.
Not
In relation to, this will be on the council website. And if somebody goes into the website and says community groups, they can
Link access, yes.
that access. I'm interested in also having a hard copy, whether it's a simple hard copy or whatever, that can be sitting in the foyer. Any new people coming into the community or anybody else. And also the self-renewal, which is now a modern process using digital processes, that one upgrades oneself or organisation where you get a new secretary, president, etc., that those things are updated and can be fed in by the group itself. A modern way of doing things. We can keep many of our community groups updated into websites without necessarily somebody having to feed that in, which was always an issue of timing. So if we satisfy those issues, I'm quite happy to support this.
Councillor Terry, are you wishing to sum up?
Just in response to the comments made, web-based data collection is much more straightforward, and I'm surprised the General Manager has said that we don't have the resources on this, because I think this is a part of the vital community collection of information. The Perth Progress Association has done that and have quite a good little directory of businesses and organisations and so forth. It is not a time-consuming matter, and there is an expectation of new people coming into the community to try to find out what's going on. And we used to have a new residents pack that we don't do anymore, but I'd even like to see that be resurrected. But I think it's important that council is the owner of this type of information. The ability to make a web-based data collection is not onerous, and I believe we have the resources within our IT section.
Madam, I need to respond. My understanding is we still do the new the residence pack, and further with regards to resources, I have a full understanding of the staffing resource we've got, and we don't have the staffing. We have the IT capacity, which is the electronic capacity, but we don't have the staffing capacity.
Okay, I'm going to put the recommendation that we do not support the NMBA in hosting and compiling the community directory. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Those against is Councillor Adams, Councillor Lambert, Councillor Andrews, Councillor Archer. You for or against?
I'm for the motion.
Okay, and myself. So that motion's lost. Councillor Goss, what did you vote? I don't. Can all those who voted against? You voted for the motion. Can all those against the motion, and I'll count it again. Sorry. All those against the motion, please put your hand up. Against the motion. Councillor Adams, Councillor Lambert, Councillor Andrews, and myself. So therefore, it's not lost.
Correct.
Oh, actually, it is lost because it's 4-4. Yes, so it's lost. So do we need another positive motion, or it doesn't matter? Okay, that's fine. Beg your pardon. No. Okay, 14.2. We're not up to 5:30 yet, are we? 14.2, Northern Midlands Council Climate Resilience Strategy. There is a recommendation, A, that Council endorsed in principle the draft Northern Midlands Council Climate Resilience Strategy 2025 to 2028, Northern Midlands Council Climate Change webpage and associated media release, and that B, that as changes to flood zones occur, the strategy will be updated to reflect these changes. Mover and seconder, Councillor Terrett. and councillor Adams. Councillor Terry, do you wish to speak to it?
Just, people might wonder why we need to have a climate change strategy like this. One of the things which is very key in reading that document is the acknowledgement of emergencies that could be coming, such as bushfires, floods, and the ramifications of climate change generally on their frequency and so forth. It's about getting ready should these conditions get worse, and putting the resources into making sure that if we do get another flood, we probably will, is being able to address that, and particularly bushfires. We are in a very large council area, and we should be both ready in our rural areas and our urban areas as well. And this is one way of doing, linking it into our emergency management planning as well.
Councillor Adams.
Yes, it's good work. There's been some good work done in this area, and I commend the councils, the other councils, and everybody for working on this. The immediate issues like that rain will fall more quickly, therefore from climate change won't be an increase in Tasmania so much of rainfall, but it will fall quicker in its areas. Therefore, putting pressure on our stormwater intakes from our roadways, etc. And that has to be considered and has to be brought into our thinking and into our planning.
Any further discussion? I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Get one more. Yep. Okay, the 14.3 is Australian Local Government, the ALGA, attendances at the Australian Local Roads Transport and Infrastructure Congress. We have a nomination from the council.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Brooks again. He seems to be a yearly attendant for that position, and although he's not here, I'm pretty sure he'd step up to the occasion.
Councillor Terrick, you're seconding that?
I'll second.
Any discussion, any dissent? Okay, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The next one. Okay, Northern Midlands Business Association nomination to the board. The recommendation is that councils support and endorse a councillor as a council representative for the board of the Northern Midlands Business Association. Do we have a nomination to put forward? And would anyone wish to be on that board?
I'll nominate Councillor Lambert.
Councillor Adams is nominating Councillor Lambert. Councillor Goss, you're seconding that. Councillor Lambert, would you accept that nomination?
I'm happy to attend on behalf of council. Sure.
Is there any other nominations? That
I just want to speak to that.
Oh, first of all, it'll be Councillor Adams speaking.
Well, I think we need to have a councillor on this body, and the way that it works, I usually go to the annual meeting and participate there. So I think it's a pretty good one. And our Deputy Mayor will represent as well.
Councillor Goss, do you wish to? Councillor Terry.
Yeah, I think it's important to have somebody on that board. There's been a number of actions that have been taken by the council where we need some input, and we're putting almost $100,000 into this organisation, where we have very little say. And there's also some things within their own strategies that certainly need updating, particularly the economic development framework. It says that they will work with the Northern Midlands Council on the economic framework. That has not been operating for many years, and it's not been updated accordingly. We've almost abrogated all our economic development to the NMBA, and I think it's an important aspect that we have some input into that, and that if there are ideas into improving our economic development, then through Councillor Lambert, I think it would be worthwhile.
Any further discussion? I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. We'll go back now to public question time. Okay, this is the time when members of the community can ask questions about something that's not related to a planning item. So you can ask a question or make a statement about something that's not related to any of our planning items. You have 3 minutes to speak, and you just need to state your name and the town you live in, and you've got 3 minutes. So is there anyone who wishes to make, yes?
Benjamin Childs, I'm here representing the Perth Community Progress Association.
Yes?
Here to advocate for something quite simple but very vital to the community, and that's the installation of an electric vehicle charger in the town of Perth. In late 2024, we actually met with the Electric Highway Tasmania, which is the largest locally owned EV charging operator, and we explored the options for infrastructure in our community. They identified the Deliberations Street car park in behind the IGA as a highly suitable site. It's central, accessible, and would serve both local users and the passing traffic on the highway. More recently, as Council will be aware, in early May of this year, the Tasmanian Government announced the new Charge Smart grant recipients. One of those was Energy ROI. They're a Longford-based company. They proposed a charging site in Longford. However, as it was reported in the Examiner on May 22, the Longford community has since expressed strong opposition to this, saying that the proposed site was unsuitable and unnecessary. And with this development, Energy ROI has said that they're open to exploring alternative sites. So that presents a unique opportunity for us. At our recent PCPA meeting on May 29, motion was passed to formally request that the Council engage with Energy ROI and support the development of the Deliberations Street car park site as an alternative. It's win-win, previously has been identified as suitable, comes with great benefits to the community and now paired with a willing operator and available grant funding. We're not just advocating for infrastructure, we're advocating for progress. It's a small town that often lags behind, but this opportunity would allow us to be a leader. Perth sits at a strategic crossroad, both geographically and in terms of Tasmania's EV future. So we respectfully urge that the Council work with Energy ROI to bring this project to life and help us take a meaningful step forward as a town.
Thank you, Benjamin. Do you mind if we have a copy of your request?
Absolutely.
Is there anybody else from the members of the public who wish to make a comment or ask a question about something that's not related to a planning item?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Yes, yes.
Madam Mayor,
State your name and
Jeff King, Street, Longford. I noticed that you have on your agenda for closed council tonight discussing the Longford Motor Racing Museum again. I'm not going into the history or the importance of that particular event, what it's meant to the community in the world, because I've spoken on the same subject. So I'd like to make a statement or regard what it can do for the community. Now I read it out. Longford Motor Racing had and still has an interstate and international following. To lose the Longford Motor Racing Museum is to lose an important piece of heritage for Longford and the municipality. Well, for our municipality is attracting tourists' attention and getting to spend time, money in our towns and regions. Ross has the bridge, it has the wool centre, has an old shops, it's a bakehouse and so forth. And it does cater very well for tourism, does well out of tourism as well. It attracts a lot of people there for a small town, so that proves the point. Evendale again has the shops and so forth, has the market. And the market does extraordinarily well for Evendale. It brings a huge amount of cash into the town. They're every week and extremely well known Australia-wide, the Evendale market. But then what does Longford have? Longford's the biggest town in the municipality, has all the facilities here, the doctors, everything you can imagine, supermarkets, the whole lot. But it hasn't got anything to hang its hat on. And I point out to you that the Motor Museum, coupled with detail and displays of Longford and our history, would be a major draw card. Longford itself has a massive amount of history, not just the motor racing. If you had a facility there with a motor racing museum, had history rooms, and all that stuff can be displayed for tourists, you keep them on the town while they're walking the streets of our town, they will spend money. And that's what it's all about. That's what the municipality should be doing. So I urge the council to support and assist where possible the retention of the museum and treat it as a serious investment in our municipality's future. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Is there any other member? Sorry, yes, sorry.
Tim Flanagan, Longford. I wish to speak on the same topic, and I have something here that Neil Kearney has written, and he's a locally born and very respected Australian journalist, author of this book, Longford, Legend of a Little Town with a Big Motor. And he has pledged his support to the proposed community-based council-supported project, which he says will would be a source of great pride and prestige to our district. And Neil has offered to work with Rob Knott and others to promote the Rob Knott collection to bring tourists and visitors to the region. And this is Neil's proposal in his own words. They're also my sentiments. So, quote, I respectfully propose to Council a project that could become a permanent tribute to an event that many of us would say was our community's greatest achievement. Well-known sign writer and businessman Rob Knott has assembled an outstanding collection of memorabilia relating to the Longford motor racing, which ran from 1953 until 1968, remains the biggest international sporting event in Tasmania's history. Over the last 7 years or so, Rob Knott has brought together hundreds of pieces that reflect the colour and magic of that period. The collection is truly unique and has already attracted hundreds of visitors and enthusiasts from around the state without any real promotion. The time has come where the collection can no longer stay in its current form, and it's likely that the 7 racing cars will soon be picked up by individual buyers given their great value. It's unlikely that the council or any other council, apart from this one, will be in a position to purchase any of the cars in his current collection, but we could be in a position to create a new Robert Knott collection featuring the memorabilia and keepsakes of the motor racing era without the price tag of the cars, which are likely to be bought by collectors around this state and the mainland. The proposal is that the local community, represented by the Northern Midlands Council, preserve many of the items in the collection that are not cars, but do relate directly to the Longford motor racing. There are dozens of items that are intrinsic to Longford's history, museum pieces that would appeal to young and old and bring hundreds of visitors to the district. Motor racing was enormous. It attracted 7 Formula One world champions, as well as motorcycle world champions, an array of international, national and local competitors. Longford motor racing also showed the volunteers of our district at their absolute best. This is why we're proposing that the local community, through the Northern Midlands Council, could collect and preserve as many elements of this collection as it can. Even without the cars, Rob has amassed a time capsule of historic pieces, posters, photographs and keepsakes that are really captivating. I suggest that this collection deserves a permanent place in a prominent Longford building, would attract huge interest and bring tourists to the region. It could be officially titled the Robert Knott Collection, tribute to a man who's keeping the spirit of Longford alive for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public who wishes to make a statement or ask a question about something that's not related to a planning item? Okay, we'll move into planning. Sorry? Councillor Andrews?
Excuse me, don't we, when do we have people who want to talk?
After we've moved into planning, sorry. I think I got it right tonight. Councillor Adams and Councillor Lambert. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, is there any member of the public now? I just need to remind the members of the public, if there's more than 4 people who wish to speak on one particular topic, 2 people can speak for and 2 against, so it'll be up to you who you choose to speak for you if there's more than 4 people. The first planning item is Planning 1, a boundary adjustment between 9 Union Street and 4 Mason Street. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak for or against?
Yeah, no. Stuart Corthen. We're at 11 to 13 Union Street. Basically, it's the rear of 9 Union Street where they've got there and put it all into like staff car park or machinery car park. And it's got all the sizes here. And the water coming through the property, the trouble is it's coming through the boundary fence, and the pipe can't take the volume of water where all the major work's being done, and it's actually flooding the area all down the side through on 11 to 13 Union Street. And it just can't take like the catchment of the water that's there. Yep. No, that's it.
Other than some compliance matter, as I understand it.
Yeah, that's right. So that matter with the stormwater drainage is with our compliance planning and plumbing compliance team. So, yeah.
Right, thank you.
It has had, like plumbing inspectors been there and photographed it, like when it was being done, yeah.
Yeah, I'll follow up with him.
We'll
Yep.
follow up with that, yes. Councillor Goss.
I just want to ask Stuart a question. Is the water running on the surface of the ground, or is it running coming out of a drain?
No, it was basically, it's just like the water that's coming there, it just, because it just can't cope with the volume of it.
Yeah, there's been car parks put in, so.
Yeah.
Sounds like our compliance officers are in. Councillor
So is there
McCollum.
any objection to the planning application? If that was rectified, you'd be comfortable with it?
Yeah, as long as it's rectified, yeah, that'd be fine.
Right. Is there anybody else in the public who wishes to speak about planning 1? Okay, planning 2 is Wellington Street, Longford, demolition of an existing dwelling and garage, and construct a new dwelling and studio. Does anyone wish to speak for or against that proposal? Yes.
Against.
Yes.
My name's Ken Richards. I'm a Longford resident. I'm also a property manager for the National Trust and a committee member for the Longford Norfolk Plains History Society, and I'd like to make a statement from the President. As an advocate for the conservation of heritage places, the Longford Norfolk Plains History Society lodged a representation to oppose the demolition of the period building within the heritage precinct at 31 Wellington Street, Longford. This period house has been an integral part of Longford's history, important heritage precinct for 135 years, and as such, its demolition would leave a significant gap in the existing character of the heritage streetscape. The purpose of the Northern Midlands Planning Scheme E13 Local Historic Heritage Code is to protect and enhance historic cultural significance of local heritage places and precincts, encourage and facilitate the continued use of these items for beneficial purposes, discourage the deterioration, demolition or removal of buildings and items for assessed heritage significance. This code applies to the use of development of land that is in the heritage precinct. This planning application to demolish does not meet the local heritage code criteria. Demolition is an absolute last resort. Clearly, this building is not at that stage. Non-rectification of the clause of any defects does not follow borough charter process. There are no professional heritage expert reports provided to support the statement by the owner that the building is beyond salvation. Indeed, the issues listed are common in heritage buildings and well within scope for repair and rectification. Further, as a period building that makes a positive contribution to Longford's historic streetscape, to allow its demolition may set a dangerous precinct for future property owners and developers to follow, leading to the loss of significant heritage in period buildings and further degradation of the heritage precinct. The Longford Norfolk Plains History Society therefore asks Council to refuse this application and strongly encourages the owners to carry out restoration works to enhance this period building for the Longford Significant Heritage Precinct. Thank you. On a personal level, I've restored a home in Longford over the last 6 years with very similar problems, cracks in walls, foundation problems, etc. It can be done.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on planning 2?
John is at Longford. I have sent in a document regarding the history of 31 Wellington Street and its connection to Harry Conway, one of the leading colonial architects of Tasmania. But I really, for the 3 minutes I've got, question why the document by Cherry Blossom Design is not identified in any of the documents. We cannot find any recorded document regarding Cherry Blossom Design. The only one we can find is an application to the West Tamar Council for a birdcage, and it is signed Cherry Blossom. We don't know whether Cherry Blossom is a person or is it an assumed name. It certainly isn't, from what we find, a business name. The controller of design, which registered people who can design houses, require an identification number, which isn't on the submission to council. It would be interesting to know why council or the officers are refusing to identify who Cherry Blossom is, because without that identification, we have got no idea of the qualifications of the applicant. And just as a final word, 31 Wellington Street is designed by Harry Conway, the leading colonial architect, who also designed the Longford Town Hall, the Tabernacle and the flour mill in Union Street. And I've been advised that the three houses that are designed next to 31 Wellington Street were probably the manager for the flour mill and employees. So the historical connection to Longford from that property is enormous. And I would urge councillors to vote against any proposition that would allow the demolishing of that building. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Izzard. You weren't wishing to show us the clock or anything?
Because his time is.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. Is there any other members of the public who wish to speak on planning two? Yes.
Hi, my name's Margot Baird. I own 31 Wellington Street with Les Williams. To answer your question, read Cherry Blossom. Our designer is Teresa Hatton, that's the building designer. She goes under the company name Cherry Blossom. I don't know why, that's what she does. So I just have a short thing to read here. To date, we have paid for and submitted to our building designer, Teresa Hatton, the following reports. It was our understanding that she would present these findings to council to support our application. 169-page slide presentation showing labelled areas of problems. A report and specifications on roof conditions, including framing and effect on wall structure and advice on drainage by Peter Spratt. Peter Spratt is a multidisciplinary engineer with over 35 years' experience in investigating and correct defects in historic buildings. Services include conservation management plans, asset management plans, structural and fabric surveys, recommendation for remedial work, cost estimates, documentation, calling tenders, direction of works and contract administration. Works have been carried out on over 500 buildings across Australia by Peter. A report from Brendan McDermott, senior estimator who worked for Thomas Orr Builders for many years in restoration and underpinning. Quote, I believe that the roof is holding exterior walls in place. The blue metal foundation is sinking and cannot be underpinned. The roof and walls would need to be removed to replace blue metal with concrete, and the joists and bearers are rotting and require replacing. In my opinion, the house should be pulled down and rebuilt as it is beyond restoration. I don't say this lightly, as I have worked in restoration, underpinning and waterproofing for many years and have restored and saved many old houses over the 51 years as a builder, carpenter, joiner. I've worked at Woolmer's and Tally, Clarendon, Auburn, Trespass, Old Umbrella Shop, Franklin House, and too many more to name. A mould report by Marty Bahata from Healthy Homes Tasmania stated, the house is deemed unlivable, and it is without a doubt that the restoration of the above property to Australian standards, and the codes are here, water damage restoration, professional mould remediation, is not reasonably feasible. The extent of the problem is past possible ramifications. Report by Martin Jordan, Heritage Restoration Australia. A report from C2 Demolition after removing asbestos from 2 ceilings, advised of further asbestos issues in the house, namely the kitchen and laundry built of asbestos. Given the fact that we have gone to experts in their fields for their input at great expense and considerable time, we find it astonishing that these reports have not been accepted as sufficient evidence of the house issues. We find it incredulous that no one from Heritage or Council, with the exception of one councillor, have actually been inside the house to view the problems, and as such make a personal informed decision on the condition instead of relying on hearsay. One would have hoped that the house is so close to council chambers, the decision makers would have taken time to accept our personal invitation to inspect the house, which I did issue to every councillor.
Thank you. Your 3 minutes is up.
That's it, done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on planning 2? Okay, we'll move on to planning 3, which is 868 Nile Road, part change of use to a function centre. Just a reminder that 2 speak for and 2 against, so you work out who you wish to speak.
I'll speak against the application. Nick Taylor from the Nile. I'd like to support the recommendation of the council officers to refuse the application. We feel there's a number of issues that aren't addressed. Probably has a net negative impact on heritage. It undermines the productivity of the agricultural zoned land around it, and it has a significant impact, and it's going to reduce the amenity of the surrounding agricultural land. It seeks to create a permanent land use conflict. That's going to be permanent, it's going to be embedded. To have 2 separate land uses on the one piece of land, which it's seeking to do through its right of way, really guarantees conflict. And the access way, as sort of proven by or suggested by the experts, is dangerous. It just doesn't meet the width for a reasonable access way under the Australian standards. So we feel it's something that should be refused, and we really like to. I like to offer support to the council for positive planning work that protects agriculture as the number one economic driver in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who, yes?
George Walker, 287 Charles Street, Launceston. We stand here this evening a little bewildered. We're for, apologies. Stand here this evening a little bit bewildered by the recommendation to refuse part change of use of Strathmore to a function centre. The current owners embarked on this application process to undertake some minor improvements to the property under the impression that Strathmore has existing continuous use rights as a function centre. And for good reason. Strathmore has operated as an accommodation function venue since at least the late 1980s. In this regard, Council approved a building extension as an event facility in the Stables building in 1987. A liquor licence has been in place since 31 January 1988 as visitor accommodation, and from 1989 for guest and function use. These dates predate the current Land Use Planning and Approvals Act, which came into effect in 1993. The previous owners purchased Strathmore as a visitor accommodation function venue in conjunction with a broader farming operation around early 1990s. During their ownership, in excess of 300 weddings have been held at Strathmore between 1993 and 2020, which included the operation of 6 visitor accommodation suites, not to mention several hundred other events such as birthdays, garden tours and corporate functions that have also been held at the venue. Certificate of Registration of Food Business, which includes a description within it of a wedding and function venue, was issued by Council and has been in place continuously since 1994. The certificate regulates an existing substantial commercial kitchen, where the process of obtaining a food licence certificate requires inspections conducted by Council officers. It's understood that Northern Midlands Council itself has held Christmas parties or functions at Strathmore as far back as early 1990s. Finally, in 2017, Council approved a 2-lot subdivision which separated the Strathmore house buildings and associated curtilage from the larger farming lot. Within the certificate of exemption issued by the Tasmanian Heritage Council, a description recognised the continued and confirmed use of Strathmore for wedding receptions, garden tours and a bed and breakfast. It's therefore contended that the current application before you should not be considered as part of a change of use to a function centre, that is a new use, but as a development associated with an existing non-conforming use. In the alternative, in the case that Strathmore does not have existing use rights for visitor accommodation and function venue, it cannot be said that the application must be refused on the grounds listed within the planning report. How can Strathmore, as a function venue, result in an adverse impact on agricultural operations and the amenity of the residential use surrounding, be contrary to the purpose and provisions of the agricultural zone, and not provide for appropriate vehicle access and parking to and from Nile to the property, when Strathmore has coexisted as a function venue within proximity to the established agricultural and residential uses, and with its current vehicle access and parking arrangements for almost 4 decades without any known issues. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak about planning 3? For or against? Okay. Planning 4 is a draft amendment to rezone 2 Bruce Place, Longford from open space to general residential. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak for or against that proposal? Recommendation? No? Okay. Planning 5, a draft amendment to rezone 4 Ridgeside Lane, 38 Arthur Street and 95 Logan Road and part of 211 Logan Road, Evendale, and apply a modified Evendale specific area plan to the land. You wish to speak? Yes? Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Strawn, live in Russell Street, Evendale, and I speak tonight on behalf of a number of concerned citizens of Evendale. Councillors, tonight you're being asked to approve the submission of a contentious and major draft amendment to the Tasmanian Planning Scheme Local Provision Schedule, Northern Midlands 2022. The draft amendment seeks to rezone approximately 80 hectares of rural land on the eastern boundary of Evendale to a mix of uses, but mostly general residential and rural living. It proposes the development of 263 allotments over the next 10 to 15 years, with a potential for another 122 lots if and when 38 Arthur Street is rezoned. The draft amendment, if successful, will double the current urban footprint of the village and more than double the population of the town over the next 10 years or so. It will arguably change forever those very features which have made this 200-year-old village such a unique and attractive place to live, namely its small size, the peace and quiet, its heritage character and the tranquil rural views. Councillors, the community has not been engaged by council concerning this proposal. The proposal in your agenda papers contains significantly more detail and is different on a number of key points than the development proposal last floated to the public by the developers, Traders in Purple, in March 2023. In other words, the last public consultation was over 2 years ago. All attempts by the Evendale District Committee over the last several years to be briefed on what's happening with the Traders in Purple proposal have been met with silence. There have been no public releases of information by council, yet clearly council has been working closely with developers but keeping the community in the dark. I accept that once the draft amendment is submitted to the Tasmanian Planning Commission, there is a statutory 28-day period in which interested parties can make comment and provide feedback. However, once we get to this stage of the process, the community is on the back foot. Representations will be assessed against the strict criteria of the Act. By this stage, concerns about the impact on such things as lifestyle, amenity and property values are likely to carry little, if any, weight. Councillors, I urge you to vote that Council refuse to prepare the draft amendment or to at least delay the submission of the draft amendment until there has been full and proper consultation by Council with the community. This should include, at a minimum, public exposure of the draft amendment, followed by public meetings between senior council representatives and the community. There is provision under the Act for planning authorities to seek from the Planning Commission extensions to the statutory timeframe in which to consider whether to prepare a draft amendment or not. As Traders in Purple have recently put their Logan Road land on the market, including the portion comprising the proposed rezoned land, it makes sense to delay the submission of any draft amendment until the land use intentions of the new owners, assuming the property sells, are known. If Council is truly serious about being consultative and generally representing the views of constituents, then please vote to refuse to prepare the draft amendment or at least delay the submission of the draft amendment until there has been full and proper consultation with the community. Thank you for the opportunity.
Mr. Strong, can you please spell your last name for the officer?
Stracan.
Thank Thank you very much. Is there anyone? Yes.
Barry Lawson from Evendale. Bob's probably touched a few of the issues, so I'll try and be quick. This application has been sprung upon us, and not just the community, the Evendale District Committee, which I'm a member of, and also the councillors. There has been the consultation that Bob referred to as a drop-in at the Clarendon Arms Hotel. It was more a sales pitch than a real consultation effort. The community has not been given enough advance warning to consider this. The councillors have not been given the opportunity to canvass their own people in their own areas to say whether this should or should not go ahead. As a group of councillors, you've probably got 2,000 pages all up to consider tonight. You've only been given a few days to do that. How can you make a thoughtful, considered decision in that sort of time frame, particularly when this application amounts to about 1,000 pages with all the reports? The proposal before you tonight is transformative to Evendale. It needs to be thoughtfully considered by the community and councillors. It should not be rushed forward simply because a developer brought land on which they wanted to make a profit. A developer that now actually wants to sell that land. Tonight, the process only allows for only a few people to speak for or against, and as such, it would be ideal if my words represented a lot of people. I have not had the opportunity to garner views from lots of people, but I can say that one person has given me an email and raises his understanding that all Evendale development plans over the years have settled on a population of 2,000 people as being appropriate upper limit that would allow for reasonable growth but ensure the village feel is not compromised. As Bob said, if all of these developments come to fore, plus existing potential developments, which was the Baker Group and also one on Logan Road, there would be more than double the population, well over 2,000 people. So that is far in excess of what has been the considered view of the limit for Evendale. So that view by this other person is a valid view, but it's only one person. What do others believe? I think the councillors, myself as a district committee member and others need time to find out what other views are. The residential supply and demand analysis for Evendale was conducted by SGS in May 2022 for Traders in Purple. It is the basis upon many things are going to be done on the basis of that, including amending the Northern Tasmanian Regional Land Use Strategy.
That's your 3 minutes, Mr. Lawson.
That quick. I'm always wordy. Can I just finish by saying, like, there are two options. One is delay. Delay this decision and give us time to think. My personal perception is don't delay, just refuse it outright. And if you want to delay by using the extension of time, there are lots of reasons. State election, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Okay, so that's 2 against the proposal. Do we have anybody in favour of the proposal? Okay, right, we will move into deliberating on the planning. Planning 1, a boundary adjustment between 9 Union Street and 4 Mason Street. The recommendation is that the application PLN 250069 to develop and use the land at 9 Union Street and 4 Mason Street, Longford, for a boundary adjustment between 2 lots be approved subject to the following conditions. And the councillors, I would hope, have read all those conditions. Councillor McCullough? You're moving it. Councillor Terrett seconding. Councillor McCullough?
I don't see a lot of problems with this, not a lot of protest against it, and my friend over here has acknowledged that if we can fix the drainage, I'm seeing it be underway, then that should go ahead. So I just think if we can make sure that the drainage problem is addressed, that we pass it without further ado.
So you're suggesting we ask the planner to put a
provision in there to make sure the drainage is fixed.
Or is that already covered by what's happening now?
That's covered by the compliance.
Yep. So we don't need to worry about that. Councillor Terrett.
No, it's fine, I think it's pretty.
Councillor Goss.
I've got a question for Mr. Gotti, just about the seal on top of the bit of ground there you're talking about. That's not tarmac, it's just gravel on the picture. If it's gravel, is that just water runoff, or do they have to contain the gravel runoff as well?
Yeah, thanks. So they have to contain gravel runoff as well as water. They can't discharge onto an alternative site or into the road.
What about if it was grassed area? If it was grassed area, they've got to retain that?
Yeah, so grass still can't cause a nuisance through stormwater concentrating onto someone's property.
My question, we've got provisions in there to stop that happening then? On the property.
Sorry?
The provisions in there to stop that happening on that property?
Yeah, so this proposal is just for a boundary adjustment. It's not actually proposing any works. And each lot have got points to stormwater. What we're doing separately regarding the concern about stormwater drainage is dealing with that as a compliance issue under the Urban Drainage Act.
And that's being dealt with now, apparently. Yep. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make sure that in amongst all of this, we have our compliance issue on the side here, but we need to ensure that Mr. Corlin is fully informed and kept updated with what, as much as legally possible, as what's happening in that space, because we don't want that to drop off the radar. So I just hope that that's going to continue. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Planning 2 is 31 Wellington Street, Longford. Demolish existing dwelling and garage and construct a new dwelling and studio. And the recommendation is that application PLN 240221 to develop and use the land at 31 Wellington Street for the demolition of existing dwelling and garage and construct new dwelling and studio be refused, as the application does not comply with the performance criteria in P1 of clause 6.7.1 of the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, nor the Midlands, as it will result in the complete loss of a building which contributes to the significance of the Longford local historic heritage precinct, and that inadequate justification for that loss has been provided, and it gives the justifications that have not been provided. A mover and a seconder, Councillor McCullough. You're moving that particular recommendation. And a seconder, Councillor McCullough.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I looked at the previous photos when this house was purchased, and I've had some information from one of our fellow councillors that has deteriorated significantly since then. However, that doesn't give it justified grounds to demolish such an important building. That building's been around for over 100 years. I've seen photos of it that survived floods. I've seen photos with flood marks up the walls of that building down there. It seems that it can be rectified. If there was any changes, we'd probably recommend the back end being removed, but the proponents possibly, if they want to do a studio, maybe want to look at something else around the town. We would certainly welcome that to come here, but I just don't see any justification for demolishing such an important aspect of our town.
Councillor Andrews.
Yes, I agree with Councillor McCullough. I know this building. I've been inside it many times. I know the building well from when the previous owners were there. They maintained it in a highly livable state for 25 years. It's been empty for 2 years, so of course it's deteriorated more than 2 years. I think it's an important part of our streetscape, as Councillor McCullough has suggested. It's also a significant house, as one of our speakers has suggested too. It's designed by one of our most respected early colonial architects, Harry Conway. And Harry Conway was also the architect of our town hall and the Longford Baptist Tabernacle, and possibly the two houses either side of the one in question. He also was the original architect for Espley in Perth and St Andrew's Church in Evendale, as well as the Launceston Town Hall. So this is a significant part of our history. I suggest maybe to current owners that if they could see their way to look after the original house, they may come back to council with a suggestion that they be allowed to take off the additions that have been made over the years, which are the back part of the house, preserve the house. It's a significant building in Longford, and maybe you can achieve what you need to do by coming back with another proposal to remove the add-ons, like similar to what happened with the Longford Tabernacle Church. That was an outstanding restoration and use of building, and the people that did that, TFGA, merely took off all the additions over the years and turned it into a fabulous building, fit for purpose, and it lives on. And as I said, it was designed by Harry Conway too. So,
Any further discussion? Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think most of what's been said. Harry Conway was a colonial architect and a very, very good one, and has left us great legacy. The issue of having lived in other areas, other cities in my life, the old concept of leaving a building to deteriorate, this was being lived in by two senior cits that I remember until 2 years ago. And if you leave a building for 2 years, it's going to deteriorate, especially an older building. Of course, in some places, they end up with a firebomb in them, and that's how they get rid of them, to demolish and build whatever they want. This is a significant building, and we are gradually getting to where we recognise and appreciate the history of this town of Longford. And this is a prime example of one that we should endeavour to do what we can. And if there's a future, we've got to look at it again, well, let's do it, but let's preserve the integrity of what we have.
Any further discussion? Councillor Goss.
Question for Mr. Godier. If it is refused and the people bring it back to council with the behind buildings pulled down, is that a new application, or is that considered the same as the old one? Because it's refused a 2-year holding period.
That'd be a new, separate, different application, definitely different, because it's not proposing demolition.
So it's different, so it's okay to come back in any time.
Yep.
And what about the new set of fees would apply and all that type of stuff?
Yes, new application.
Any further discussion? Councillor Lambert.
Yeah, look, I'd just like to say I actually did go and have a look at the property as part of my due diligence on the invitation, which was thank you. However, I think demolition is a step too far at this point in time. I tend to agree with Councillor Andrews, where she's talked about perhaps being able to preserve the original part of the house. I think Councillor Goss mentioned as well. Perhaps look at ways that we could, perhaps another application to take off those add-on parts of the building. It's a significant building that has been discussed tonight, but I just want to also draw people's attention to a proposal that we dealt with a few years ago in Macquarie Street, Evendale, where there was a home there that was in absolute disrepair, the worst house in the street kind of scenario. However, demolition was refused on that property, and they have now gone on to I believe, retain the original front of the building and some of the beams and things inside, repurposed and reused some of the materials, but have created the most amazing looking renovation, which I think is reflective of its period. There's a big add-on at the back, but unless you really are looking for it, you don't see it. But that house has been beautifully restored to an age-appropriate look, and I just want to bring people's attention to the fact that those sorts of things can be done sensitively and within the keeping of the era that it belongs to. So, yeah.
Any further discussion? Councillor McCullough, do you wish to sum up?
No, everybody said plenty on it, thank you.
Okay, I'll put the recommendation, and that's to refuse the application. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, planning 3. is Strathmore 868 Nile Road, access over 866 Nile Road, parts change of use to function centre, and the recommendation is that application PLN 240097 to develop and use the land at 868 Nile Road with access over 866 Nile Road, Nile, for a part change of use to community meeting and entertainment function centre be refused on the following grounds, and the grounds are listed there. So have a mover and a seconder, please, for a recommendation. Councillor Terrett, do you wish to move the recommendation that's there? Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Councillor
Get it
Andrews.
going so we can talk
Thank you. Councillor Terrett, do you wish to speak to it?
I'd like to hear from some other people beforehand.
Sorry, I didn't hear you, sorry.
Sorry, I'll wait, I'll reserve my right.
Okay, right. Okay, you can sum up if you wish. Okay, Councillor Andrews, do you wish to speak?
Yes, just to say that I agree that this should go back to the drawing board. Basically, I'm particularly concerned. I'm concerned about the effect on the neighbouring properties from an agricultural point of view, but I'm also particularly concerned about the driveway. And I find this really odd that I know Strathmore and I remember it from when it was a sizable farm and it's gradually been decreased in size to now basically it's a building with a couple of paddocks around it. I don't think there's actually even a couple of paddocks these days. And somewhere in that reduction of what was a farm to what it is now, that property has lost its access out. You know, so now they have to depend on a right-of-way from the neighbouring property to access their house. And just on that, from that point of view, I find it fairly ridiculous that we're now suggesting that it be reopened as a place to have weddings, etc., and public events. With that road, the only access road in and out, and it's not a safe road to take the traffic that's being suggested. So, you know, it's being suggested there'll be weddings there with guests of 200 coming in buses. The access road is partly dirt. This is the road that doesn't belong to Strathmore, but they've got the right of way. It's partly dirt. It also goes around the rim of a dam, which is a convict dam. It's been there that long. It's a one-lane road with no area for ordinary cars to pass, let alone buses. So from that point of view, just alone, I think I've got to say no, that this is not appropriate. I understand that there's been discussion in the past between the people involved, so the owners of the two adjoining farms in Strathmore, to see if maybe there can be another access road provided, which would be a safe access and Strathmore's own access road, and that's not been suggested. So I presume that Strathmore owners don't want to go ahead with something like that. But for all the above reasons, I just can't vote for something like this going ahead.
Councillor Archer.
Could I ask, please, Mr. Godier, in relation to the previous use? Mr. Walker stated there's been weddings there since in recent years, up until 2020, I think you said. Why the situation is considered to be a new use? Just change of use?
So yeah, there's a number of statements as to what it's been used for over the years. We've got no planning permits on file for it. In terms of, it's looking at having up to, it varies, but say up to 150 guests at weddings up to 4 times a month. So in any case, it's a substantial increase from any previous use. And the barn is the barn, the car parking, they're new parts of the site that haven't previously been developed.
Thank you for that. In relation to me, the big concern here is obviously this is a shared access, but also this is an agricultural zone, as we've been told. I think the fact that Strathmore sold off some more land for agriculture meant that the collision between the two is even closer to the house. And I still haven't seen a report that the convict structure actually is a legal structure to carry a road, especially a coach. So in that regard, that's another factor I think would need to be resolved. Obviously, the protection of agricultural land is an extremely important part of our planning scheme. And sadly, when you subdivide places and houses are left alone in the middle of farms, there are conflicts. And we're all too well aware of the two different uses. One's obviously animals, the other one's noise and people and vehicles. And I would like to think that there is some solution here in regards to use. Obviously, there still may be accommodation, but it does worry me that late night weddings and coaches accessing through a right-of-way is at this stage not acceptable.
Any further discussion? Councillor McCullough.
Yeah, I'm close to this one, but I'm not convinced that it's the right decision to approve it. There's just too many unknowns at this stage. I think that the two parties need to probably come back to the drawing board and have a bit more of a discussion. I think it could work. I think there's got to be possibly also more restrictions put in. As Councillor Arch said, there's no supporting evidence that I can see, and I could be proven wrong, that the dam, whilst it can carry buses, hasn't shown any previous flaws. And we've got the agricultural aspect. So it might be times of the day that might prove a limitation. But at this stage, I just can't come across to the accepting that a late night use for it.
No further discussion from anyone other than Councillor Terrett. Councillor Adams.
It doesn't, the proposal does not comply with the agricultural zone purpose 21.1 or the agricultural provisions, parking and sustainable transport code provisions. I reckon you'd need an engineer's report on this driveway that goes across the side of this old dam and the platypus holes that are probably in there as well. And it seems to have been a property that's been levered to get as much out of it as possible in Salt Valley without any consideration for its future use. And we've ended up here before the planning authority of this council. So I support the recommendation that it doesn't go ahead in its present form.
Councillor Terrett, do you wish to sum up?
Just very quickly. The reason for my refusing this application is based on the agricultural usage and surrounding usage of this. I've lived in a property which had a shared entrance to a commercial area. And whilst people think that will be fine, there are circumstances where people open gates, they'll drive onto properties, and where you have large numbers of sheep in a flock, they don't do as they're told, and trying to control that. And I just don't see this as compatible with this agricultural land that it surrounds.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to put the recommendation that we refuse the application. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Planning for a draft amendment to rezone 2 Bruce Place, Longford, from open space to general residential. The recommendation is that under section 40DB of the Land Use Planning Approvals Act, Council as a planning authority agree to prepare an amendment to rezone 2 Bruce Place, Longford, from open space to general residential, and that under the section 40F of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act, Council as a planning authority certify the draft amendment of the Northern Midlands Local Provision Schedule as meeting the LPS criteria, and that under section 40G and 40H of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993, Council as a planning authority determines the period for public exhibition to be 28 days. I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Goss, you're moving that?
Thank you.
And Councillor Adams is seconding. Councillor Goss.
Just this parcel land was once targeted for a park area for the people's playing, and it's become surplus to council use, but it's parked further down near Laycock Street, which residents can use. So I think it's good to rezone this land and put it back into residential property.
Councillor Adams.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And we're going to keep the walkway between the two up to George Hudson. It's an old Wharton, we used to call them in those days, Mayor. Yeah, so we're going to keep that. I think that works and it's surplus to us, so it can become residential.
Any further discussion? Councillor McCullum.
We actually, the council actually own that, don't they? The council own the land.
So I understand. Yes.
We've never discussed selling it, have we? So I missed the meeting or something?
It will happen now, won't it?
No, so just,
It's in the report. It's got the minute reference there. Just find it.
whereabouts? 27th June 2022. That's pretty much time. Can that motion be carried forward to the next council?
Sorry, this on the rezoning. Oh, yes, yeah, can. Yeah.
Any further discussion? Anybody? Councillor Goss, do you wish to sum up?
No comment.
I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Planning 5 is the draft amendment to rezone 4 Ridgeside Lane, 38 Arthur Street, 95 Logan Road and part of 211 Logan Road, Evendale, and apply a modified Evendale specific area plan to the land. The recommendation is that pursuant to section 38(2)(a) and section 40D, yes.
It's on the screen.
Okay, there is a change to this motion.
We can do it.
And hang on, I'll just go back to that bit. What about the change? You want to move it up so we can see it?
Cancel defer decision.
Yes, the original, yes, sorry. We have now, after our workshop, added another option to that recommendation. We can have that first recommendation, or that council defer a decision on this application until the 18th of August 2025. So we can have a councillor move one of those motions. Councillor Goss is deferring and Councillor McCullough is seconding. Councillor Goss, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I'll speak to this. I was a bit shocked to see this on our agenda when we got a Thursday night, and only to have a few days just to see that before we could make any kind of decision on it. I thought it was a bit much to ask. It's a very big application. There's 1,000 pages in it. I didn't have time to look at it all. I couldn't, as much as I could. I just couldn't really understand it. Even on the in the paper copy, I couldn't get a big enough picture to see on the paper copy, so I got my computer out and I couldn't even see it on my computer. So things are really hard to see. So we need some time to look at the bigger drawings, so we can actually work out what things are good or bad or otherwise. But you couldn't do it from these papers that were being presented. I'm really concerned about the traffic going through Stocker Street and the other one, I can't remember the other one, and Arthur Street. The 3 streets have got traffic just streaming into it. They're not very big streets, very, very narrow streets, and to have, hundreds of properties funneling through there is just, I don't believe that's possibly the right thing to do, but I do need to have more time to look at the stuff in more detail and think about it more, get some more information. I don't think I need to speak up anymore.
Councillor McCullough.
Yeah, I mirror those sentiments. To be landed such a massive decision with 4 days' notice, I'm not sure where that came from. The last time this came to council was a couple of years ago, and we were told they were coming back a few months later to discuss matters further. That didn't occur, hasn't occurred, and then this lands on our table 4 days out after making a decision. So thanks to Mr. Godger and some common sense, we've got a deferral, and I think that's the right outcome for this evening.
Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's pretty safe to say that this has created a lot of angst, not only amongst councillors who have had to deal with this in a very short space of time, but in particular amongst the community of Evendale. We have been lobbied like we have never been lobbied before on this issue. Lots of people very anti, lots of people very pro, and then there's a huge group of people in the middle who I've spoken to who just want to have their opportunity to talk about this proposal. This is a huge proposal for the Evendale community and something that will have long-lasting effects, and we as a planning authority should be giving those people that opportunity to have their say. So I'm not sure that the motion where council defers the decision on this application includes, and I want to make sure that if it's possible, that we include within that somehow for councillors to sit down and to workshop this in a more detailed fashion, but also to provide opportunities for community consultation, whether that be a drop-in session or a number of drop-in sessions with our experts to be able to sit down and listen to people's concerns, the things that they think are good, and to be able to listen to what, and for them to be able to ask questions to gain a better understanding of what this actually means for the Evendale area. So I'm not sure whether, do we need to add that into the, because that has to happen, as far as I'm concerned, that has to happen.
I think, yes, if you add that in, then it's clear.
Council hold a workshop, and that workshop council will then determine how they will progress the public consultation.
Yeah. Because it's super important that the community get to have their say in this matter and get to share their thoughts and understandings of it. So as long as that's in there, I'm happy to support that. Thank you.
And after that, please. And determine community consultation, yeah. Determine? Yes. That's all right like that? That covers it, does it? Make sure. Yep, that covers it, that's fine, okay. Councillor Terrett.
I was thinking similar to what Councillor Lambert, we do need to have community consultation. Right up front, the general community won't know when we're having a workshop or how long that would take. And I think doing a drop-in would be a good way. At the very least, consulting with the district committee, who has also raised this on many occasions. We have a situation where land is being sold and we're looking at rezoning that land that's currently up for sale. If we have a Evendale development plan written in 2012, if we are to look what Evendale will look like in the future, we need to update that plan as part of this process. This is being driven by the development of a rezoning where it should be driven by the community, and the community should have the say. I don't think many people in the communities are against having additional zoning, but it's got to be sensible and in keeping with the village of Evendale, and we've got to be mindful of that. In England, a lot of the historical towns has buffer zones around them, and then you have the new section between that. So it actually complements the town, plus you're getting development. Towns will grow no matter what. We can't stop that. But if we have, this is an opportunity for us to get it right. So why don't we get it right this time? Engage the community, engage our district committee, and get the right answer.
Thank you. I just want to, Councillor Adams, you'll get to speak in a minute, and Councillor Archer. Hang on, I'll just put your names down first. I just want the mover and seconder, Councillor Goss and Councillor McCullough, to make sure they're happy with the addition that we've got here. Defer a decision on this application until the 18th of August 2025 meeting. Discuss at a council workshop prior to the August meeting and determine community consultation.
We need, that last few words need to be fixed. As far as determine community consultation, what does that mean?
We'll do that at the workshop. Yeah, at the
dates. Determine dates.
Yes. Yeah.
Community consultation.
Okay. Determine dates for. Okay.
Thank you. I'm happy with that.
Yep. Okay, Councillor Adams.
Well, yes, this is a major issue. I mean, Evendale is a beautiful village, and people end up probably doubling the size of this village. It's some people refer to Evendale as the Richmond of the north. I refer to Richmond as the Evendale of the north. There's transport issues here. There's transport things that need to be certainly studied and resolved before rezoning, so that we can make, if it goes ahead. I'm always conscious of towns, and dealing with Evendale over many years in different roles, that an economy of a small town is important because it has to be big enough to sustain its school, its pub, and the butcher shop's gone now, but that's a general change in retailing and all those things. But so you need to have a size to maintain the economy and keep the services in good step. So it is an important decision for council, and I'm very pleased to support the deferral.
Councillor Archer.
It's like I agree with what everyone said, but I just think we also have to keep in mind that every region town in North Midlands is under pressure from housing and subdivision, whether that be just for housing or whether it be for industrial. The issue here is consultation and planning, and obviously the process we feel hasn't been adequate. But I would like to say to the people of Evendale is that it is very difficult to stop progress. People need houses. It's just a matter of deciding where they are, how to build, and what dense they are. But this project came up on a large scale 2 years ago. I was hoping that probably by now we would have had a solution in place where maybe some developments happened. But even in that regard, we've got planning developments near Evendale that haven't proceeded. But don't forget, there are people who do need a house, and we've got to put them somewhere. So it comes down to planning and consultation. But as a council, we are pro-development for people to have a private house of their own. And that's my main point I'd like to make. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Goss, do you wish to sum up?
Yeah, just quickly, just go back to Mr. Strawn's comments over there that before we do the rezoning, we've got to make sure we get the parameters right, because if we rezone it and don't get the parameters right, there's no going back to it. So that's the thing that's really important for everyone to understand. We've got to get them right before we pull the trigger on rezoning, because if we don't, we've done that in the past here in this council. We've done things, and we should have put some more things in the rezoning part to stop small box development and that type of stuff. So I think that's really important. It's just really a bit of the plan we saw 2 years ago. This is nothing like that. And there was some of the plan we saw 2 years ago. There were things like sewage systems in place, water systems in place. I can't see anything on this plan for those kind of things. And there's something, I know it's probably maybe not be a rezoning issue, but we need to have those things sort of, I think, some idea what's going to happen, because we don't want the situation happens that we rezone it and then there's nowhere to put the sewage. Those kind of things need to be sorted out. So they're the things that we do need to make sure we can do. But it really is important to everybody that we need to make sure that we're right when we do the rezoning, because it can't happen afterwards.
Okay, I'll put the recommendation that we defer the decision until the 18th of August. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Now, council needs to move out of planning. Councillor Lambert and Councillor McCullough. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We're now going to break for our meal break, so we'll be missing 5 minutes.
You're waiting for me, Mayor.
I am waiting for you, councillor Goss.
The speaker's ready.
Don't get used to it.
Okay, we're up to 14.5, policy review of the dog management policy and code of responsible dog ownership. We have a recommendation that council A, endorse the amendments to the dog management policy and the code of responsible dog ownership, and B, approve the release of the amended draft policy and code for formal community consultation to seek feedback from residents and stakeholders, and C, note that a further report will be provided to council following the consultation period, summarising the feedback received and recommending any necessary final changes prior to adoption. Councillor Terry?
I'd like to move that council does not amend the dog management policy and code of responsible dog ownership.
Is there a seconder to that? Councillor McCullough? Over to you, Councillor Terry.
Like all of you, I've received many calls from people concerned about the implications of this change to dog ownership and to prohibit kennel licences, being anybody more than 3 dogs in the residential zone of the Northern Midlands, is both a deterrent for people to move here, because any new person to the area who has 3 dogs must make that decision which dog has to go, because you will not be able to get a kennel licence. I had a lady on the phone this afternoon who was almost in tears. She was an elderly lady and making plans for if she has to go into a retirement village. She had agreed with her son that the dogs, she had 2 dogs at that stage, would be given to her son to look after. That would mean that he would have 4 dogs. He lives in Longford, and he would not be able to have a kennel licence. This is some of the ramifications of these changes of the kennel licence requirements. We reviewed this policy in August 2024 and meant that we had already looked at this. As raised through the workshops, I highlighted the fact that the state government has been looking at and has had consultation. It is expected that, according to their consultation paper, that the Dog Control Act and the Animal Welfare Dog Regulations would be amended later on. And we'd have to come back and do this whole exercise all over again. The angst that this is causing people in the community, and knowing that through what happens quite often is that you may get when your older dogs die, you get a younger dog or a puppy, but the provision of removing the existing kennel licences by natural attrition is not, in many cases, quite adequate. The policy says that you can't have more than 2 dogs, but it also says you can have 4 working dogs in your backyard. So we're making a rule for a certain type of breeds and not others. So having 3 Cavaliers is wrong. Having 4 Border Collies or Kelpies in your backyard, that's okay in the Northern Midlands. This is such an inhibitor for people with dogs to even move. We encourage people to come to the Northern Midlands. And this means that people will bypass or move out of the Northern Midlands in order to look after their dogs. Dogs are often more than just a furry animal. To many people, this is their child. And I think it's a matter of saying, well, you can only have a certain number of children. There are no limits on cats in this area. So you can stop people having two dogs at that and say you're not getting it, but you can have 5 or 6 or 7 cats in the residential area. This residential zone also includes areas and properties in the low density areas of the council, which are could be as 5 and in Devon Hills up to 50 acres in some cases. You can't have more than 2 dogs because you're in a residential zone as we've defined, and therefore you couldn't have that dog. This will be a duplication, and often with kennels, having somebody going and inspecting like we do in the Northern Midlands actually stops people from doing bad practices in kennels. We will force people to go underground. People will avoid registering their dogs, so you don't know you've got a third one there. And it will not stop puppy farming, because puppy farming will just go underground. We're unsuccessful in stopping the Labradoodles in the past, and we are conscious of that. And by having people inspect these kennels and working with them, we stop a lot of this occurring. It's been a long-established activity for many people to have a dog, and as that is their hobby. A lot of people do have show dogs, have obedience dogs, they do dog trialling and so forth. What we're fundamentally doing here is popping people in residential areas of the Northern Midlands from enjoying their dogs as such. I think one of the things about this policy is the fact that why is it necessary now, knowing that this policy will need to be reviewed later on. And I hope the council supports me by not proceeding.
Councillor McCullum.
Yeah, I'm not a dog person per se, but given the number of emails I received last week, there's obviously plenty of people out there that are. But looking at it from a very pragmatic situation, I think that we've got a lot of work to do here. We haven't done this very well in the past. Listening to someone like Councillor Terrett and listening to the people that have been emailing me, that suppose we're not probably doing it right anyway, I think that we probably should be pulling the pin on at this stage, and I think we should be taking that opportunity to get the public to consult, or not consult, but let them write into us and give us their thoughts and ideas, and using that as a positive outcome for when we change the policy down the track. Councillor Terrett tells me that that's going to happen sometime between the two major parties down the track, not too far away. So I think we should take this time to get community reviews or community consultation, community input, and bring that back to the table for future decision making.
Any further discussion? Councillor Adams.
Yeah, I would support the policy, the recommendation, and so I'll be voting against this motion. The officers they need to have an updated policy now to deal with what's coming before them. So I think we should do that. This is stopping people having dogs. I thought there was some inflammatory language used. People have their dogs. How many? I see councillor next to me did not mention how many dogs we should have in a residential area. He talked about 2 not being enough. Well, how many? Is it 10? Is it 3 bitches who have 10 puppies each? You end up with 30 plus the dogs. These things aren't. I don't think it's an easy question, but it's not. It's something you've got to deal with. When do we know we're going to get something out of the state parliament? I mean, when do we know? We just don't know. We've had 3 years of going on, and we still haven't got anything. So we need to have, as I understand it, the officers need to have an updated policy to deal with issues that come before them at the present moment. We're going to put it off for another year, 2 years. I don't think that'll be right. Some of the issues, I suppose, you could grandfather into the clause, into the policy, and of course you can review it as soon as we get we get some state direction and a new state act, which does need to give more power to enforcing certain standards. It's been a very poor situation in Tasmania, where some people have exploited those easy rules for their own gain, and a lot of it's been for just financial gain with large puppy farms, etc., which are really, really sad that people operate at that level. So I will vote against this and support the need to get something upgraded for the present time.
Okay, I think we need to hear from our council officer, Tatiana, if you wish to speak. Then Councillor Goss.
Okay. Well, we want to clarify some things that have been just taken maybe as in a maybe the wrong way. We want to say that most of the things that we are putting in the policy are already in the act. We are just putting there to make them clear for council officers and for the public. We have bring this report to council 2 or 3 times by now. And in the last workshop, it was asked to us just focusing in the kennel licenses because that will be the main issue currently in our municipality. So that's what we did. I think there are some things that are being taken in the wrong way, as for example, the limit of the number of the dogs. The legislation is clear, the Section 50 in the Dog Control Act 2000 in Tasmania says clearly that you can have 2 dogs, companion dogs, pet dogs, or you can have 4 working dogs. If you want to have more than that, you will need to apply for a kennel license, which could be issued or not, depend on the case. But that standard has not been just invented or made up for us in this policy. That's something that precedes to us. So I reckon that's one of the things that needs to be like very clear. It's not like Northern Midlands Council enforcing this. It's just trying to make the things clear because that wasn't in the last policy, which yes, was amended in August, but it was very in the bare minimum amends that could be done. That's one thing. The other thing is responsible ownership. A lot of comments are or have been around how this will actually impulse people doing the wrong thing. Well, we are just trying to put this on paper and trying to make owners of dogs conscious about that what could be a problem and what couldn't be. And I don't think that some people that in a bad way don't make the compliance with the legislation or the policy. That's the general. I think we are good and we are citizens and we should just follow the rules. So that's why we are doing this. The other thing, the puppy farms. The puppy farms are, and all the things that have been, because that was another thing that we were discussing, the modifications of the legislation. Most of them since 2017 and 2019 are being direct, and the current one, because there is a current consultation one, have been directed to some technicalities, the 2017, 2019, and the current one has been very focused on the well-being, which at the end of the day is not affecting the council power to get compliance on the Dog Control Act, because the well-being aspect of the look after the dogs, of the responsibility of the dogs, is the RSCPA at the end of the day. And that's what is under the main discussion at the moment, that well-being aspect, which of course could impact the municipality and of course the council work regarding the dog's well-being. But as authority that enforce the Dog Control Act, at the end of the day, our root or our ground is the Dog Control Act, and that hasn't been modified in any other aspect since 2019. And the other thing that was mentioned is about the number of cats. We are working in a cat management policy as well, because, and I think this is a bit sad, we are pretty much the only council in Tasmania that we don't have a cat policy, a cat management policy, and we need it to treat the cats as they're supposed to be treated, but more than that, to make conscious the cats owners that they have responsibilities as well. because with cats, the problematic is very different. But coming back to the dogs, yeah.
Sorry, and one big clarification point I think that we need to make is that when people are talking about not allowing dogs in residential areas, the policy actually states that the kennel licence will not be granted for properties that are less than a total of 400 square metres. So we're not talking about every residential policy having such a stringent look at. It's those much tinier things. And I did see many comments on Facebook comparing Chihuahuas and Great Danes, but we're not going to implement a policy that takes care of every single type of dog breed. What we're trying to put in place is a policy that will work with both council officers and the public to ensure that we're looking after our pets, our dogs, like we should be. I think every dog should be treated like a member of the family. And we take multiple calls a day where people aren't looking after their dogs. So we just want some guidance to be able to offer to the public. That's why part of these changes have come in. It's one of the most contentious areas that we have in a day.
Yeah, and in addition, we have seen some comments as well, like the concern of the public that the dogs are going to be taken from them. That's not going to happen, and we want to make that very clear. That's not something that we even pretend or even can do. So, yeah, that's not what the policy is meant to be. We are not trying to take a dog, precious dog, from its family, or just making a family move to another municipality or just give up to one of their dogs.
Yes, before Councillor Goss, can I just ask a question, just to clarify between working dogs and companion dogs? Working dogs are generally in the rural area, aren't they? Not in the urban zone.
They are generally there, yes.
It's working dogs on properties.
But because the zoning works a bit different, that's why we are putting that clarification, because that's a planning matter as well. And we have been having some issues with that, with the planning zone, the zone of the use of the property depends if it's residential or not, those kind of things. So that needs to be clear. And another thing is we include definitions in the policy. So actually work dogs are there as one definition because we haven't had any definition before, and I think that's important as well.
Councillor Goss.
I've got a few questions. First question was, what is the definition of a working dog? Is a hunting dog a working dog? Is a security dog a working dog? Is a sheep herder a herding dog? Is a dog that's used to kill mice in barns, are they working dogs? You know, we haven't got a definition about what a working dog is, and that's probably something we need to work out. The other thing also I'd like to ask about is, what are we going to do about if we accept this policy, what are we going to do about the properties in Northern Midlands that have got 3 dogs now, and they got registration for those 3 dogs, and everything's legal, but we bring this policy in and they're not legal? Are we going to have some kind of transition time, or are we going to say the ones which are registered at the moment, they're fine, but any new registrations, we're not going to allow those? But I don't think that's in the policy clearly.
Madam Mayor, can I just indicate all we're after is actually to take the policy out to the council. It accepts the policy as it is. It goes out to the community. Then the comments are made by the stakeholders and the community members. Then they all come back to council to finally determine what the policy should look like. So I wouldn't at all suggest what the policy is looking like at the moment is what the policy may end up looking like.
So you're saying this is a draft policy?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah. We probably should have draft policy on top of it.
Yeah, it would have been helpful, yes.
Council Officer first.
Just in response to the 2 questions from Councillor Goss, in the definitions, we have working dog as a dog used principally for dropping or tending livestock, livestock, detecting illegal substances, searching, tracking, or researching, or rescuing, or working with police officers. That's how we actually conceive the working dogs, like under this policy. And about the 3 dogs question, I think that's the incorrect idea of what the policy wants to say, but it's open to discussion, of course.
Councillor McCulley had a question.
Yeah, a question. I've looked at some information, and the council is to invite public submissions relating to proposed dog management policy or an amendment of the policy, consult with any appropriate body or organisation and consider any submissions and results of any consultation before making the policy or the amendment. We're sort of doing that, but we're not quite. We're asking consultation. They use the word submission. I think there's a significant difference there.
You're building up to questions?
Yeah, I'm going to ask, can we include the word submissions in the, get public submissions into the draft policy as opposed to consultation? Because I think it's very important. For the number of emails I've got, I think it's very important that people can put their case forward.
Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Mayor. With all due respect, I can't support that we don't endorse the amendment. I would really have preferred, and I'll put this forward as a foreshadowed motion, that we support recommendation B and C, which is to approve the release of the amended draft policy and code for formal community consultation to seek feedback from the residents and stakeholders, and note that a further report will be provided to council following the consultation period, summarising the feedback received and any recommendations prior to any final changes. That will be my foreshadowed motion. But just to speak to the motion here, what we're effectively doing here is cutting off community say. We're cutting off the community from being able to have a say about this by saying that we don't endorse it. They have no opportunity whatsoever to put their points of view across, whether they agree with the policy, parts of the policy, they don't agree with the policy, they have suggestions for improvements for the policy. They don't get that opportunity now. And that's not right. That is not right. Our communities deserve to have an opportunity to have their say. And that will clear up some of the things that the officers have been talking about. We've all fielded a number of emails and phone calls and conversations since this agenda came out in regard to this issue. And people want to be able to have their say about it. And I for one, can't support cutting our community off from having their say. So I'll foreshadow that motion. We know that these regulations are going to be changed at some point. We don't know what point. Government's in caretaker mode at the moment, so it could be how long is a piece of string. We don't know. We know it comes. It's going to come. When it does come, what we will have is a policy that our community has been consulted on, our community have had their say on. Our policy then will reflect that, because we've listened to them and we've amended it, because that's what Part C says. And then when the new regulations come out, we can do a match for match, send it back out again for further community consultation. It's never enough community consultation. And see whether what we've actually got this time needs amending or further amendments, or needs or is accurate in regard to what the state government's policy is going to be. So with all due respect, I'm going to vote against this one and foreshadow the
So as somebody who has not had a say wish to speak? Councillor, you don't have to. I'm not forcing you to. Councillor Archer.
All I will say is that we have 29 councils in this state, and if every council is going through what we're going through, it would have to be the most inefficient management of animals I've ever seen. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy to support Councillor Lambert's foreshadowed motion. Let's get on with it, and hopefully, out of the state government change, we can get some direction and solve this problem quickly.
Councillor Terrett, do you wish to sum up?
Can I ask a question?
No, you've asked a question, I'm sorry, and you've already had to speak as well. Councillor Terrett, do you wish to sum up?
Yes, I do. This policy, even in the short period between in the last 5 days, has caused angst in the community. Putting it out for consultation, and I agree wholeheartedly with what Councillor Lambert said, we need to have input. But we've already have a policy. The definitions won't change things. The overriding Dog Control Act manages this. We're not responsible for looking at welfare. The RSPCA is, and we're not a regulator in relation to that. The rules are set down within the Dog Control Act, and that's being amended. Why cause angst in our community with a policy in a draft that is not in keeping with what might be in the future? It's a bit of crystal ball gazing. We might change it and then find that the Act changes, and it is a case-by-case basis on kennels. Some people can keep 3 Cavaliers quite nicely. You probably not even know that they're there. But the person who has a working dog, yes, a lot of them are on farms, but also working people who work on farms take their dogs home, and you can have 4 Kelpies in a backyard in a residential area of a farm worker. That does happen in our towns. So to say that it's just something that for farms, no, it's a real thing that does happen, and people do breed dogs, working dogs, in residential areas. My concern is that this is not fully thought out. It is there are a number of errors throughout the document. Just for an easy one was the Tasmanian Canine Association. There's no such thing. It's Dogs Tasmania. A minor thing, but working through those various other aspects. I see nowhere what she's saying why we need to have this tiered process in the first place. And I trust the Animal Control Officer to go out and have a look at these properties and to make, if there is an animal welfare concern, work with those owners. By saying that everybody who has a kennel licence shouldn't be in a residential area and they're banned is not the answer. All we're going to do is push people underground. We're going to penalise people who are doing the right thing, and we're going to actually cause angst in the community. And that's why I don't think we should endorse anything in the policy, and we should keep the policy the way it is until such time as the new Dog Control Act comes out.
Okay, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Councillor Terry, something.
Sorry?
I just had to say.
You just summed up.
Yeah, that's fine, that's right. Cool.
All those against the policy? They're against the non-amended policy. So there's Councillor Adams, Councillor Goss, Councillor Lambert, Councillor Andrews, Councillor Richard Archer and myself. So that motion's lost. So you have a foreshadowed motion, Councillor Lambert.
Yes, we just need a second.
Which is the motion that's the original motion?
No, it's only part of the original
Just
motion.
B and C.
Just B and C.
I'll second that.
And Councillor Adams is seconding. But you're saying in B and C, just looking at the wording, approve the release of the amended draft policy. So unless we endorse the amendments, that's all right to have. That's okay.
It's only a draft.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So do you wish to speak to your motion?
Oh, I think I've probably said everything I need to, except for the fact that I want to make sure our community is consulted. We know that there's another policy coming out. We don't know when. But I think it's important that we get, considering the amount of communication that we've had, I think it's really important that we listen to our residents and hear their feedback, and that will better inform us to tighten up the draft policy. So, yeah, I think I've probably...
I'll second the motion, please.
You have. It's already been seconded by Councillor Adams. Councillor Adams, do you wish to speak?
Yes. Yeah, well, I think most of it's been said, Mayor. I think it's about consultation. It's about putting it out there for formal community consultation and to seek feedback. We can get that back. I mean, people can play politics with this if they want to, and big note about this and that.
Councillor Adams, excuse me, everybody. Councillor Adams, please be respectful.
I don't think it achieves anything. I think all we're doing, all we're doing here is asking the community to have a look at this, tell us what they think our policy should be, and we can come up with some better results than we have.
Now, Councillor Goss, you had your hand up before. Did you wish to speak as well?
There's no one seconding
Okay.
it.
Yep. Councillor McCullough.
Would Councillor Lambert be inviting to the words after to seek feedback and invite public submissions, those 4 words, and invite public submissions from residents and stakeholders?
I think that'll be fine.
Thank you.
So the community consultation, seek feedback and submissions. Yep.
Councillor Adams is happy with that as well?
Yeah.
Yes, that's fine. Any further comments? Okay, I'll put that recommendation to council. Oh, sorry. Hang on, I'll read it out again. Approve the release of the amended draft policy and code for formal community consultation to seek feedback and seek submissions from residents and stakeholders.
And invite public submissions.
Okay. Oh no, back before.
Back before in the yellow.
It's in yellow and
You just go in between and just put invite.
And invite public submissions.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you very much.
The second is happy with that? Yes. And the second part of it is to note that a further report will be provided to council following the consultation period, summarising the feedback and recommending any necessary final changes prior to adoption. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Good night. Corporate Services Report, the monthly report financial statement. Ms Bricknell, do you wish to make comment? The recommendation is that Council receive and note the monthly financial report for the period ending 31st of May 2025 and authorise budget 24-25 alterations as listed in item 4.
No, there's just a list of items there that have been carried forward over into the next financial year or deferred.
Mover and a seconder. Councillor Adams. Councillor Terrett. Councillor Adams, do you wish to speak to it? Councillor Terrett?
Yes, I
Yes.
This actually is the last it's a significant one, this report, because it shows a month before the end of the year what our bottom line was for last year with the surplus. For clarification, this was done on the 31st of May and shows a $5.7 million surplus. I'd like to see clarification from the Corporate Services Manager if that is correct and what our surplus will be at the end of this year.
Well, this is a preliminary result because it's of May. Obviously, depreciation has been adjusted, but there's all the capital asset recognitions at this stage. So this is very preliminary, and I expect it to be a lot closer to the balance position.
Just clarifying, sorry. As a balance position, you'll say neither a surplus or a deficit.
It would be close, yeah.
It would be close, okay. Just seeking further, this is another $16 million.
Can I just clarify, that $5 million that Councillor Terrett's talking about, that is actually the capital grants that we've received so far this year, and the actual projected underlying deficit at the moment is $3.3 million, which I expect to come down from that.
Thank you. I note that there is $16.8 million of carried forward, again, quite a substantial. It's not unusual for projects to go over to the next year. I'm more concerned of those that went over from the previous year, which is still going forward and still not being done. Concerning that some grants are being used for investments rather than getting on with the project and using that investment money to get on with getting that project done. There are several deferred items which are on here, including the Evendale Stormwater Channel in Barclay Street, Evendale Medical Centre extension, and the Longford Roundabout. I'm pleased to see at least they're on the supplementary budget, that they're not being put on the budget as such. So the likelihood of those being done, I'd like to think they're going to be done, but I somewhat of, it's not always that we get the supplementary items back to be done. And I hope that sometime through the year that they will not be forgotten and those matters are dealt with.
Is it me?
Councillor Adams, you'll get the chance to sum up, sorry. You've had a say.
I think officers should make some comment about what those 3 projects are and actually why they're still sitting there.
Well, the Evendale Doctors one, we're still in negotiation with the lease agreement with that one. The roundabout here at Longford, the $200,000 that we actually received from the state government to do that job, we're still seeking approvals to be able to do it. And what was the other one? Stormwater at Barclay Street. We're still under negotiations with the landowner there to finalise the easement, and the subdividers haven't moved forward on that subdivision either. So we've got the allocation there, but obviously they're not ready for it yet.
Councillor Goss?
No.
Any further questions? Okay, Councillor Adams.
Only, I think the officers have covered it. There's often projects that don't get going. We had, the Memorial Hall and the money there for 3 or 4 years. These things, the main road issue, which we're now spending, it's taken 3 or 4 years as well. I mean, I see how these things constantly stay over and hang on. I think we all understand that.
Okay, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The Audit Committee expression of interest membership. And there's a recommendation there that Council appoints Mrs Carolyn Harris as a member of the Northern Midlands Council Audit Committee for a term of 4 years. Councillor Terrett's moving. Councillor Lambert seconding. Councillor Terrett, do you wish to say anything?
No, I've met this particular lady. She's a very competent and a hugely experienced, been director of the Institute of Directors. She's an experienced auditor, and I think we're very lucky to get her.
Yes. Councillor Lambert, you
Just great credentials. Welcome her aboard.
Absolutely. No further discussion. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 15.3 is the municipal budget. There's some changes. Hang on a second. I'm just going to. I know there was one change that I thought should be there.
Yes, the fire service rates had to be changed.
What page are we looking at for those changes?
That's in the recommendation.
4.5.
Page 1 obviously.
Document.
Oh, looks like 200 or 300?
194.
194.
On the computer.
Yeah.
Page 195.
Oh, the recommendation starts at 190.
2.3.
Where is that other one then? Otherwise, right? It's about, it should have been mentioned as deficit, not.
That was in the report, and you'll find the report, it's
There you go, yes.
just above the grades, yeah.
It's not a surplus, it's a deficit.
Page number 10.
Any idea what page that is?
197, I reckon.
197, there's a table with a yellow column in it, and just above that, the second paragraph above, it says 0.09 million surplus, not, it should be deficit.
Yeah.
It says deficit in the line above it, but it doesn't say in that one.
Yes. Okay, now we need a mover and a seconder for a recommendation.
I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Adams is moving the recommendation. I have a seconder. Councillor Andrews. Councillor Adams, do you wish to speak to it? Councillor Andrews? No. Anybody's got, Councillor Goss?
Yeah, I can't support the recommendation. I've had a fairly heavy study of the budget, and I'm really appalled with the results which are on page 201. You know, when we look down that chart on the side, and we're going to tell people that we got rate increases of 2%. 13.4, 11.7, 14 again, 12.3, 12.6. I just think that's unacceptable, and so I won't be supporting the budget. I was thinking more along the line, something like about 5.5% increase, and I have got some reasons behind that, but I still think we probably need to have the money in for the $50 for the waste transfer station, because we're a bit unsure about that yet. We haven't done any funding on that or discussions on the new model we're going to have there. And also the increase in the curbside collection, which I think is 10% if I'm correct. So I think that should go on top of the general rate of 5.5%. Some of the reasons why I did that, and I went through the budget line by line. I didn't go through every line because there was that many things on there that stood out to me. I just didn't know where to go. I just want to highlight some things I did pick out though. Things in the budget. Plumbing services and subdivisions engineering services. That's for the subdivisions, I think they are. The revenue we got in the next financial year, we're looking at 101,000, but the expenses are going to cost us 156,000. That's $56,000 difference. You know, we're doing plumbing services for developers or anybody else, then they need to pay those costs. Not that the general ratepayers in all the areas pick up those costs. Same with the subdivisions, engineering services. Look like getting $46,000 in, and we're going to have $76,000 being paid out. There's $20,000 that the ratepayers are picking up for people doing subdivisions. I mean, these things have got to be user pay for those type of things. I even looked at things like the dog fees. The dog fees, I haven't got the figure on me, but they were $10,000 or $15,000, more than $20,000 under. The fees are under what the cost for the dog, look after them and pay the officers and all that type of stuff. You know, that's got to be user pay. Those charges have got to increase to get those things up, and all these things can be increased so that the users actually pay that. Other things that I really stood out in the budget, which I thought was really quite bizarre. I picked out just a few examples, but there was many examples to look at, and I could go back through line by line, right down the line. Hopefully other councils have picked out some lines as well that they think might be right. Caravan park at Ross. Next year, we're going to receive $42,000 income, but the expenses are going to be $43,000. You know, we can't do that kind of stuff. Every time we collect some money off something, we're spending more than we get. We should be making a bit of a profit for the ratepayers, not losing money every week. So $1,000 of ratepayers' money is going in to support the caravan park. The Campbelltown Memorial Hall. The revenue for next year is budgeted as $78,000. $78,000, the revenue. But the cost for the Campbelltown Memorial Hall is $194,000. So we're losing $120,000 on the Campbelltown Memorial Hall. Now, most of that money, I think, is going in when people rent it out, and we've got to pay for the lady to clean it and all that kind of stuff. We're losing money. The Campbelltown Memorial Oval, sorry. Oval, sorry, I said Hall, sorry. You know, that's $120,000. The ratepayers are picking up, and they've got to have it increased in their budget, in their rates, to pay for that. Where we are, guys, is that we need to start saying that maybe we're best not renting out the Campbelltown Memorial Oval and having those people that come all over the state to come there, because it's costing our ratepayers are paying for that. I'm not sure why we're doing that. I'll keep going on another couple of things, just so you know, so it's not just branding. Even things like, I went down to single line items. Item number 400625 in works. It's storage yard. 9,000 we budgeted for last year, 9,000 this year, but the actual expense is only 2,000. Well, I know it's only 7,000, but if you went through every line in the budget and found 7,000 or 5,000 or 3,000 or 2,000, you'll soon get 200,000. Millers Bluff Radio also, item number 400620. 7K last year, 7K this year, only cost us 2K. So there's another 5K we can make up, just like that. The staffing, I do think we need to have a staffing review. We've got put so many staff on. I just think we need to have a review of the staff, what we got and why we got them, why we have them and what we need and what we can do about. I'm not sure, but we definitely need to have that. We just can't keep on putting on staff. You can't spend more than you got. You can't do that. Fleet review. The fleet is just, I think we need to do a review of that. What do we need? What can we cut out? Can we increase the mileage of our fleet? Instead of having 80,000 K on a car, can we have 150,000? And that kind of stuff will make, instead of having to replace a car every 2 years, we'll have to replace them every 4 years. With the fleet, do we have to have all the machines? Are we better to hire them in? We've been told many times we haven't got a grader operator. We haven't got one, but we've got 2 graders sitting in a shed. I mean, do we need to have, if we can't get a grader operator, are we best off selling their 2 graders, not having them, no depreciation, no replacement cost, and just get someone in the grader when we need the roads done? I'm not sure, but they're things we need to discuss. Legal advice. There was no item for how much legal advice cost us this year in this budget, and I think that's something we need to look at in the future. We need to have an item for legal advice. We need to know exactly how much we're spending on legal stuff. I don't want to quote the general manager, but a few times, we've had something on the agenda, and the general manager regularly says the legal advice comes back. So it's like everything we've got on the agenda, we're getting a legal advice. So we need to have a dollar figure on that. How much are we spending on it? Why are we doing that? I think there's lots and lots and lots of savings we can have in the budget. I think there's lots and lots of things that we're not doing well, and I think we need to review that. I want to talk about one last thing, which I did mention before, and I have mentioned about this in the past, and that's the swimming pools. The swimming pools. The expense for just running the pools, and this is not for all the chemicals and the cleaning toilets and all that kind of stuff. This is just for the lifeguards and people collecting the money at the gate. Just doesn't stack up. Ross Pool, they had $55,000 worth of expenses, but we didn't receive any money from Ross Pool. No gate keeping from Ross Pool. There was nothing in the budget anyway for that. So we've got no indication there. Campbelltown, they had $58,000 worth of expenses, but they only got $9,000 in the gate. Cressy, they had $67,000 worth of expenses, which is the most out of all the pools, but they got $26,000 in the gate. Why can we get one pool doing that and the others are not? I've spoken quite a bit about how at Cressy Pool, there was one person sitting at the gate collecting the money. We've got to review that. We can't pay someone, I don't know, 20 or 30,000 to sit there to collect $2 of a kid coming in the gate. We can't do that. It's not. I don't think it's a very sensible model doing that there, and we need to review that. I'm not going to talk anymore, but I won't support the budget like it is. We need to reduce the amount we're going to have, and I hope council will support me doing that.
Okay, any further conversation? Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of Councillor Goss. We've spoken a couple of times about this, and ironically, we're very much aligned. I had 5.5 written down. He's at 5.5, so we're very much there. I've picked out a lot more things that outside of what he's done. There's things on here. Business unit general expenditure. I'd like to know what that is. If I keep going through here and the stuff I've picked out. We've got, we're paying exorbitant amounts of money to the Northern Midlands Business Association, and I don't think we get bang for our buck. We're $89,000, and I haven't seen anything to justify an $89,000 expenditure. I'd be expecting 40 grand off that at least this year. Capital Works, again, Councillor Goss is spot on. Why are we giving our cars back in today, 2025, when 80,000 is the 150,000 today is the 80,000 of yesterday? Cars go for much longer. cars are much more reliable, they're much more bred for long distances and lots of use. So we should be pushing that back to 2 and 3 to 4 years and making sure that they get fully utilised as opposed to handing back after 80,000 Ks as we do now. We've got tourism and signage in town brochures for, I don't know whether, I assume that's Voca stuff, but why aren't we using signs and Q codes instead of paper? I assume brochures are brochures, but why aren't we using Q codes and getting people to get them stuff on their phones instead of printing stuff? Dog registrations, Councillor Goss is spot on. There's 3,860 odd dogs registered, or 3,960 odd dogs. We should be putting them up $9 to $10 to $15 a dog. Everybody will spend hundreds of dollars at the vets. If they want their dogs and they want us to provide an outstanding service, then we need to make sure that service is provided well, and it's not being provided well because it's costing us money. So dog registrations probably need to be looked at to go up. The other thing I found ironic is that we're cutting back on lawn mowing apparently this year, and we're buying 2 new lawnmowers. I find that just quite bizarre. So if we go to the Capital Works program, we've got ride-on mowers, one for 30,000, one for 12,000. Yet we seem to be cutting back on lawn mowing, so that makes no sense to me. We've got 522,000 on the playground in Napoleon Street, which is blown out tremendously. That needs to be looked at. We've got $150,000, I think, in replace of boundary. No, that's not it. The plant shed office plants at Longford and Campbelltown. Perhaps we could do that over 2 years. So I think there's a massive amount of money that can be saved, and we can bring the rates down to a more reasonable level of sub 6 and closer to 5.
Any further, Councillor Archer?
I think the rate increase is not sustainable, and this includes obviously a deficit, running a deficit. As I said at the last meeting, basically we've got to cease the employment of any new people. I mentioned the heritage consultancy, that was, I don't know, 20,000. The tourism officer at Evendale. I agree, the dogs, I think the amount of work we've put into a dog policy, every person who's got a dog should be paying a little bit more money, and I've got about 4 of them. I agree, we've got to try and cut our wages, whether we mow the lawns less or have no new lawn mowers or not. I just think at this stage it is going to be unacceptable to have that figure that high. As I said last time, it's all very well to have a deficit if you've got a long-term strategy to pay it off. Now, unless we do start to reduce our costs, probably right across the board, that includes employees, their wages, whatever, we just can't keep on going the way it is. And the fact is, as I said at the last meeting, 29 councils going through all this with all these things, it is just a recipe for amalgamation. Just the work done on the dog policy, for example, as I said before, if 29 councils are all spending that amount of time, there are just too many inefficiencies, as I can see it, for a council as small as this. I've been rung up by quite a few people this week, and if they thought there was going to be 9.5, whatever it is, they'd be biting my head off. So we have got to find some savings. Last meeting we had an option of 8.4. I'm not sure what happened to that. But I'd definitely try and get it down by at least 1.5%. And I'd like to know from the corporate services manager, what are the possibilities to do that?
Ms. Bricknell?
Are you asking me how to do that?
Well, does these figures include no heritage consultancy? Does it include no tourism officer? Does it include no new lawnmowers? What is the spend on Napoleon Street? Can we cut that back? I also agree with Councillor Goss. I think realistically we've got to look at having some kind of audit of staff roles. We seem to be spending a lot of money on IT, which I'm hopeless at it, but it's a lot of money we're spending. And also we are doing a lot of things going to legal fees. Now, that was one of my main goals when I spoke to Mr. Paul about our costs. We've got to try and reduce our legal fees. Obviously, we've got legal responsibilities, but at every option, and it's partly the councillor's fault, in that sometimes we go against things or for things and there's a legal consequence. Well, I can't blame the General Manager for that, but it is a significant part of our budget and it's just not sustainable, considering we are still running a deficit. We are way off being able to say to the council on these figures at this stage.
Madam Mayor, I just need to remind council, there are a number of regulatory matters that we need to abide by. One is obviously planning development. There's also a number in the Local Government Act. There's also a report coming up where we're indicating that if you wish to maintain the committees as they are, we need to take on additional personnel, additional officer to maintain those committees. We never had to worry about that before. We've had to worry about that now. The undertaking was given to the Office of Local Government. If council's not prepared, I'm just giving a for instance here, if not prepared to look at incorporating these committees, removing the burden of their compliance from us, council will need to look at an additional officer. We have a number of governance officers now because of ongoing issues we've had and responses we've had to provide to the Integrity Commission, the Office of Local Government. Just last week, the week before, we had to provide advice to something. They chased the mayor about an item, and that took half a day of an officer's time. If those items were to go away, we would be in a completely different position. Also, our legal costs would have been substantially less over the last 2 or 3 years too if things were different. I think councillors are aware of that. Officers have no control over that, and they will continue if the issues continue to arise because we have pressure put on us from other departments to respond. And they're just not 5 minutes response. I had to do a statutory deck on an item. We were interviewed on another matter about a month ago. We had to put together, I think it was about 2,000, 3,000 page statutory declaration. All these things are going on in the background. If we have these items removed from us, we could reduce our costs substantially, but they're not. They're ongoing.
Is the General Manager saying we shouldn't have accountability and transparency? Because that's what you're saying.
Excuse me, a bit of respect, Councillor Terrett.
Someone needs to pay for it. Sorry, someone needs to pay for it.
No, Councillor Terrett, please, Councillor Terrett and Councillor McCullough, please let the General Manager have his speak, just the same as you have the respect when it's your turn to speak.
I am suggesting someone needs to pay for it, councillor, and I'm hearing tonight that nobody wants to pay for it, and that's the prerogative of council. But as the General Manager, I'll have the Office of Local Government and others chasing me to make sure we provide the advice they want, and we'll need the resources to do it, and that won't go away.
Ms Brigdon, do you wish to make any?
Just a comment with some of the capital works, like obviously the fleet review and Napoleon Street, purchase of lawnmowers. Obviously lawnmowers wear out, but those capital purchases are not the ongoing costs. We're talking, the operating costs, which some of those capital projects don't fall into. That won't make any difference whether we, reduce that. That will only make a difference to our cash balance. But it's the ongoing costs, like, our tourism, I think that was raised, our staff. They're the areas that we've got into trouble with because our labour has just grown so much in the last 24 months. Things like our waste transfer station employees, our governance officers, our extra IT officer, our extra parks and reserve officers. Those things have just grown to make a difference of over almost $1 million, and that's basically what our deficit is. So, unfortunately, we're in a situation where we probably need to, try and put a hold on some of those operating costs and raise our rates a little bit above inflation each year till we can erode that deficit.
What about some of the things like the Campbelltown Memorial Oval, that 120,000? I mean, that's just draining the whole 100. That's 1.2% on our budget, and it's not. If we close it down tomorrow, that's 120,000 will save our rate bars. When that's in there, it's a line in the budget. That's in there, and we're doing that, and we're wasting money there. It needs to go. I mean, even things like, I don't want to get. I've had a fair bit to say. Our gentleman at the back here, I had to talk to him in the lunch break. Online streaming. How much does that cost us? And tonight we had 21 people listen to it. That's a really big amount because we had a lot of people. It's usually, I quoted from the gentleman at the back, about 8. That's how many do it. Is it worth paying $10,000 a year to have 8 people listen to our meeting? I mean, we need to cut those things out. We just need to do it. It's not compulsory. It's not things, but they're things we can do. Just put a line for them and stop doing them. And then we might need our extra IT officer, because instead of the gentleman sitting up here doing our taping, he won't be here at all. We can just use the old recorder like we did in the past, which cost us a new tape every 6 months if we lost it.
Councillor Archer.
Too much talk.
Could I just say, in relation to the ongoing years, and the corporate services manager just mentioned about rates going up above the CPI. As I said before, I think if this happens every year, we have this drastic blowout in depreciation or wages, the councils are not sustainable. Now, I heard what the General Manager has said about obligations in regards to state duties. Well, we've got to convince the state government pretty quickly that our council is not sustainable. Otherwise, basically we are going to go broke. Now, that may be the state government's thinking, well, that's a reason to do something drastic. But the fact is, I cannot sit here and say, I'm going to support these rates and this deficit without knowing that next year or the year after that the council is going to lock in and start reducing somehow the costs. Now, in regards to what I mentioned, I'd just like to know how we can get down a little bit, down to 8% by cutting out some of the things I mentioned. The Heritage Consultancy, Tourism Officer, Evendale. What are the basic things, they are operational, what are the basic things we can do to at least get down to a level which is still above CPI, but is not quite as drastically bad. And I think basically the people out there, ratepayers, we're all probably struggling from cost of living, are going to want to see us biting some fat off. Now, there might be much fat there, but we've got to bite pretty hard, I can tell you. So, that's what I think. I mean, I'm prepared to cut $100,000 out and get it down to 1%. I'm quite happy to have help to do that.
Yes, Councillor Adams.
No, well, I think we need to come up with a figure. I think we need to be.
The waste management charge that you've introduced is equivalent to 3%. That's the $50. If you want to halve that waste management charge this year and just bring it in over 2 years, then we need to find a savings of $190,000 during the year, or you'd have a bigger deficit.
Well, I'd be happy to support that, but I also like to see an audit of our operations in regards to waste management, because I've already mentioned the FOGO bin. I'm lucky I can dispose of my green waste on my farm, but I just cannot believe it's an excess. It was meant to save us some money. It hasn't. To have 3 bin collections going on, I think for a semi-rural area like this is just a cost we can't afford. So I'm happy to see that waste spread over a couple of years. But in saying that, obviously we don't want a massive increase next year. So we've got to review our waste management and try and get our costs down as low as possible. Some of that we can't do because of state government situations, but we are running a tip, numerous tips, and we are running a pickup service. And I just think at the moment we're paying too much.
Councillor Terry.
Thank you.
Look, I concur that we are charging too much. We've got to be conscious of cost of living and also the demographics of our local area. And just for your information, I went and looked at the other councils' rate increases. You had Launceston 5.2, Meander Valley 4.3, West Tamar 4.3, Break a Day 3.9. Now, to say we're very different from those is I could not argue, especially when you start looking at the employee costs. And I thought, well, I'll go back 5 years and see what it was 5 years ago in 21-22, $6 million. It consisted of 29.1% of our budget. This year proposed is 10.2 million, representing 36.2%. Our staff has moved over the last year from 77 to 100 full-time employees, and that has meant that we've had an extra 23 employees over that period. I'm taking those figures straight out of the annual reports, the annual plan. Other costs that have increased substantially in that same 5 years was a 140 litre garbage collection has gone up from 126 to 200, the proposed 231, an increase of 54%. That was also reflected in also the 240 litre bin going from $189 to $330, which is a 57% increase. And I do agree that we have to do some cost recovery, but we also have to be conscious of cost of living. And you can't just keep hoisting fees on top of people. The CPI gives us a good index of what we're going to, but more incorrectly, the council cost index, which this year is 3.13%, and usually our rate should reflect that because that's taken on a statewide basis. The CPI for Tasmania is 1.8. It's one of the lowest in the state, in the country. So we're a lot lower than that. We're proposing here a 7.95 with the waste transfer general rate of 389,000 reflects our rate increase way above the 10%, and that's reflected on page 201 of this report as far as 13 to 14%. That's not an achievable result. We have to do some trimming, and the fact is, in the last 3 years, our employee costs have gone up by 1.6 million in the last 2 years, each year, not just one-off, each year. And if we go back to the annual plan of last year, it says the reason behind that is because of the new EBA. Well, that's the same excuse we've been given this year. It's going up by 3.5. And in that same time, we're increasing the number of employees as such. I still don't know why we are transferring, doing the waste transfer contract ceased. I still haven't had a report. Most of these are operational matters, so I don't get an answer if I do ask these questions because they're operational. Councillors don't have a say in this. So what we're doing is saying, put these things up and I won't say rubber stamp, but give it a tick. We're here to represent the ratepayers, and it's time that we start thinking about that. And unfortunately, General Manager, if you don't have enough workers, then that's a matter for you. We give you a budget to work in. You can work out where your cuts are coming from because we give you a budget, and that's the budget we want you to follow.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I need to respond to that. Yes, you do give me a budget, or we give all staff a budget, but at the end of the day, you have a responsibility to abide by the legislation as well.
Absolutely.
And you therefore need to take that into account to make sure I've got the resources to meet those requirements. If you don't take that into account, which is what I'm hearing you don't wish to, that's something that you need to consider.
Well, I think it's something for all councillors here to consider what things we do and what things have to go.
And I'll just mention something. You mentioned that Meanders is only 5 point something or other percent. Last year, they found themselves in exactly the same situation we are in now and raised at 7.9%. So
raised 12%.
Yes,
12%
yes.
last year.
So
that's why they can have a low.
every council comes across this situation, and it doesn't mean we're not viable. It does mean we need to be responsible and have enough income to cover our costs. So where do we go from here? We ask the corporate services manager to rethink the budget and we come back next month?
I'd foreshadow a motion,
Yes, you can
please.
foreshadow a
I'll
motion.
foreshadow the motion of,
We haven't moved a motion yet, so you can.
You have.
We have.
You've got the action.
Oh, yes, we have. Yes, beg pardon. You're foreshadowing the motion, yes?
And
That's right.
the motion is that I'll put forward the 5.5% and with the $50 waste transfer fee and the 10% increase in curbside collection. And I think that some of those things in the budget that I pointed out, those line items, got to go through them, and you know, if it's not there, you've got to reduce it back. And some of those things that we do, we might need to cut them out because we just can't afford them. We can't afford to do them. And I think the savings are there. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in those line items I went through. I didn't add them up. I didn't do every one of them because I could. I didn't have enough time to do it. I spent half a day just looking at the operation expenses, and there was lots and lots and lots more. Some things need to go up, like some of the fees, the subdivision fees. They've got to start paying, those subdividers. They've got to start paying for what they're doing. We've got to put the fees up for the dogs, we've got to do that. We can't sit them down. I know we put up the fees for the funeral, the cemetery, put those up. But even the cemeteries, we're spending 30,000 more than what we bring in. You know, you've got to cut down, so we're only going to spend 30,000 less. You've got to do that. Somehow you've got to be able to get that done. You just can't keep on putting the money up. You only spend what you got. That's it.
I'll second that motion.
It's not put yet.
I'll second
We've got a motion on the table at the moment. That's a foreshadowed motion. So does anyone else wish to speak to the motion that's already on the table? All right,
Can you just, sorry, explain what those figures are for this current one?
As the motion that's in your books.
9.572.
That's right. No, what's the?
At the moment, it's 7.95% plus $50 plus the 10% for curbside fees. So it's a 2.45% reduction in general rate.
So it's, what you're saying is it's 7.5 standing, and so.
7.95.
7.95. So council staff have already brought it back from the 10% or the 8.6% increase that they were suggesting.
You could save the same amount of money if you left it at 7.95 and reduced the $50 to 25. And then you could make a decision tonight. But if you change the 7.95, you'll have to make a special meeting because there'll be different rates in the dollar.
Okay, so that's up to the mover and the seconder, Councillor Adams and Councillor Andrews.
On the board, thank you. Happy with that because it spells out what a general rate is. If we put it at 7.95 and incorporate the other money, it won't be clear. I think we can sell $50 waste management. I think we can sell that. And I think we can sell the 10% curbside increase in fee. But I don't think we can sell 8% increase in general rate.
So that's the motion that's on the board though, 7.95.
Yeah, 7.95, yes.
Plus $50 plus the 10%.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, I'll put.
Which you said works out at 3%, the waste.
The $50 stuff, yes.
Yeah. So the mover and seconder, Ms Bicknell, has suggested that if we reduce the $50 waste management to $25, that reduces the.
If you reduce it by, if you take the $50 out, that reduces it by 3%. If you reduced it to 25, that reduces it by 1.5%.
It's back to 6.4.
Well, instead of the 11% or 10% that they're saying, it's actually an overall increase of the 8.
They're on top. Yes, it is unclear. So it's really whether you support the one before you. If not, then move to another option, which is what Councillor Goss is suggesting.
We've got to put the motion, Mayor. And
Yes. So you're putting the motion without any reduction of that fee?
Yeah, I think well, I think there's a general feeling that, you know, this one won't get up, and I think we'll go to the shadow. The shadowed motion.
We could get it up perhaps if you reduce the waste management fee.
No, we knock it out first and then we'll go to the second one.
Well, no, I
You've
disagree.
already
I think
motioned it.
Sorry,
we should,
Councillor Adams and Councillor
deal
Andrews.
with the one in front of us first.
Of course.
So we'll just deal with it as it is. Councillor Adams and Councillor Andrews,
And I
happy with
suggest
that?
that what we've got in front of us, if we deal with it properly, we take the advice and reduce the waste management fee from 50 to 25, and that might get a few people over the line.
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting. Is that you happy with that, Councillor Adams? So we reduce the waste management fee from 50 to 25.
Where is it?
That's at the top, back where you were, in the first line, there. Oh, that's the, I beg your pardon, that's the foreshadowed one, but the sound, yeah, right here, sorry.
That's 2.1, yeah,
There,
that one.
that one there, just make that 25. That gets it closer to what Councillor Goss was asking for. Okay, I will put that recommendation. All those in favour? Aye. Against?
Aye.
Councillor Terrett, Councillor McCullough, Councillor Goss, Councillor Lambert and Councillor Archer, so that's lost. Right, so now we go to the foreshadowed motion. from councillor Goss, and we had a seconder, councillor McCullough.
Well, so this is changing the rates in the dollar, so you'll have to set another, give us a recommendation and set another meeting for us to come back and finalise it, because you're changing the rates in dollars, we don't have the right to do
So
it.
we can't do it tonight. Councillor Goss.
I'm just looking at the $50 waste management fee. I just think that the trouble is that waste management fee, we've had no figures on it. We've had no data. I didn't really even know that we need the waste management contractor, and we're going to have to start doing it ourselves. You know, but we've done no costing on it. We've got no business plan.
That's why we've got to come back to another meeting.
Hang on. Yeah. So what we got, that should have had a bit of a business plan now, so we knew what we're spending on it. I mean, that $50 waste management fee is probably too much. It might only want to be $10. I don't know, but it's only just a guesstimate, I assume.
We've got the figures. We had them last workshop.
I'm talking. Sorry, Madam Mayor, I'm talking. Please don't. Is that okay if I keep the floor?
Absolutely.
We don't know what it is. We've seen no business case for it. We've seen none of that. All we've had is that there's got to be a $50 fee there. I think that's got more chance of selling that than putting the rates up to 5% of what it is. Maybe we don't need $50 waste management fee. With that waste management fee we had in the minutes before at our workshops, it said that it's going to cost $260,000 for the employees, but it didn't account the taking out $260,000 to what we paid the contractors last year. I mean, we haven't got any figures on that. So it's just, and I think if we do that $50 waste management fee or $25, whatever we want to do, that's only just for the first year to get the waste management off the ground. And after that, we've got to have a budget. You've got to have a budget for us. You've got to have a business case for it. And we've got to go from that. I've heard, I'm not sure if this is right, but you want to put in a weighbridge at the tip up there. I mean, is that what you want the $50 for? Do we need a weighbridge and have a couple $150,000 to buy one of those? I don't know. I mean, but if you're just going to take the waste management fee to put a weighbridge in, we haven't had a weighbridge for 50 years. So surely we haven't got to have one this year. Can't we have one next year, year after that? It's not something we're going to do right away. But again, we need a business case for it, what we're going to do. We need to know why we got rid of the last lot of guys doing the waste thing. We need to know what it's going to cost next. We need to do all that stuff. And we haven't got it, we haven't seen it, and we need to see more. Thank you.
So we need you to move a motion or I need somebody to move a motion to put this off till next meeting, and we need a workshop in the meantime, in the middle.
That's a foreshadow motion.
Yes.
So can we change it to $25? Because it's going to be a base, it's got to go back to meeting.
Yeah, okay.
Can we change it to $25?
It can't be decided on tonight.
No, but hang on. $25 to be brought back to a special council meeting and a date to be decided. And that way we get something to work to.
That's probably good to know.
Well, Madam Mayor, with regards to waste management, it's difficult for staff to run a facility with a contractor if they pull the pin, number one. So that's difficult. And number two, there are other issues going on with regard to those sites as well. And I'm quite sure if you haven't heard from adjoining farmers, you should have heard from them with regards to the issues going on around those sites as well.
Well, if we don't know about them, how can we make a decision?
So we have. So that's why the budget...
Let the general manager speak,
budget has
please.
been set around that. The corporate service manager has also put together a budget clearly identifying within that the income and the costs with regards to the facilities. We hope to have some savings in those areas, but we're yet to see. With regard to the weighbridge, yes, we can put that off. That's a capital cost. That doesn't impact the bottom line. And as yourselves are probably well aware, what are one of the complaints you get the most from our site? And I'm happy to continue to receive those complaints. It's about how they do the calculations with what's being dropped off. And they're suggesting all the time, not all the time, but it's been suggested quite loudly that the staff there are not doing the correct calculation. Well, I'm afraid with a weighbridge, the calculations will be right on and they'll be paying accordingly. But without the weighbridge, we won't be able to do that. And that's fine, but the cost of that does not impact the underlying operating deficit, is my understanding.
So Councillor Goss and Councillor McCullough, are you happy with this foreshadowed motion that council endorse an increase of 5.5% general rate, a 25% waste management fee, a $10 $25, beg your pardon, waste management fee, 10% curbside fee, and to be brought back to a special meeting at a date to be decided.
Thank you.
We pretty much need to decide it now, don't we?
Yeah, that, yes.
Doesn't need to be in there?
What's that? Sorry, the
A
date.
date,
The date. I think, well, if council's happy, we'll target the next coming workshop in a fortnight's time.
So, can I just clarify? So are you accepting the budget, but setting a rate to that amount? Or do we still not accepting the budget? Can I just have that clarification, please?
Well, I think we need to work on it because I think there's a bit of disgruntlement.
So we don't accept either?
We're not accepting either by the sounds. But we are endorsing a 5.5% increase only.
Target.
25%.
Sorry, well, we need some clear direction.
So do we need to change that word endorse, or are we?
What's a better word, councillors?
Investigate.
Set.
Set.
Set is
Propose.
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 Same with the other ones as well.
Yeah, and it'd have to be proposed on all of them. And the workshop is the 7th of July. We seconded. Councillor McCullough.
So can I say some clarification? We will have our special meeting at that time, but then
I'm asking now, do you wish to have your special meeting instead of a workshop?
Oh, do we do both?
You might be able to, yeah.
Yeah, take 5 minutes. Take a bit more than 5 minutes. Yes.
So special council meeting and workshop, or workshop and special council meeting on the Monday the 7th of July.
Have a special meeting first. Just in case.
5:15 or 4?
Oh, yeah. 4 o'clock, everybody?
Okay.
Is that too difficult for working people?
Brooks may not be able to do that.
Yeah.
He's back.
4 o'clock? Okay, 4 o'clock, we might get it all done. All right, I'll put that recommendation. We don't have any more speakers to that recommendation. Yes? Right, councillor Tarrant?
You're asking for a $25 waste management fee. I still don't know what it's for. I'm still kept very much in the dark on this. And it was made clear, Councillor Goss made some very good points about it. I still don't know, and I actually wrote to the General Manager, which you would have seen, so I was told it was an operational matter and that I would be answered tonight. Well, I haven't received an answer.
Well, I don't think I did indicate I'd answer tonight, but I think the Corporate Manager provided some advice today through an email on a number of matters.
Therefore, I won't be supporting $25 management waste fee.
Councillor Lambert?
These are just proposals at this point in time. That doesn't mean that that's set in concrete. We'll go back, obviously, and there'll be a lot of review of the budget, and that may come back looking at a different figure, and I would presume that we would get that explanation at the special meeting, the workshop, so we have more of an understanding of what that means, and that might help us to decide whether it's $25, $50, or whatever we believe it needs to be.
All right, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Tarrant's against. The motion's carried. You can't, that's against.
I know I can. No, I can't. I'm abstaining, so that'll be against.
Yes, the motion's carried. Right, what's next? Okay, 16.1 is the policy review, heavy vehicles using council bridges. There's a recommendation that council endorse the heavy vehicles using council bridges policy. Councillor Tarrant's moving
I'll second it.
and Councillor Adams is seconding.
Nothing on this one, on the bridges.
Councillor Tarrant.
I just had a question of the Works Manager with the new Ashbury Road Bridge, whether heavy vehicles will be allowed across that bridge.
That's sorry?
The new bridge which is being built along Ashbury Road.
Yes.
So
It still is a heavy vehicle area anyway, Ashbury Road is.
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 16.2 is a policy update, private works and driveway entrances. And the recommendation is the council endorse the private works and driveway entrances policy.
I'll move.
Councillor Adams. And the seconder,
It implies that we,
Councillor Archer.
it
Councillor.
implies that we don't do anything for nothing. Basically.
I didn't hear that, Councillor Adams.
No, sorry, I was talking about, okay, I just said that, I think it means that we're not going to do anything for nothing.
That's right. And you don't, that's, you're happy with your say. Councillor Archer, do you wish to speak?
I think, yes, we've got cost recovery is the main thing. We've just got to make people pay.
No further discussion. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, we move into closed council.